Friday, happy hour and haters with Tina Desiree Berg.
I got haters.
Tina, I know it's early for you.
Yes, it is.
1 o'clock. Okay, good. That's an IPA?
Yes, this is I think it's a double IPA, so I'm not sure how much of I'll be able to drink.
Hey,
double IPAs are strong.
You know, I've always been amazed, and we're going to get to all the haters in a minute. I've always been amazed in my travels. A lot of times when I would fly places.
Ready? Here it comes.
There you go.
Do we start yet?
Yeah, you could start. And Colin has the sound effects, so when you drink, we'll hear it. When I've traveled places, if I'm like in the airport or whatever, there's people at the bar at like 7 a.m. And I'm not judging, but I've never really been able to start drinking. There you go. I've never been able to start drinking.
It's pretty good.
I usually don't like to drink before like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. I'm not like a huge drinker, but it's 1 o'clock your time, but you're doing it for the reporting. You're drinking early for the reporting. Right.
And the best part is I actually have to go cover a protest later on in the evening. So I'll have to sober up after this.
Oh, perfect. Just so people know, and smash that like button and keep the super chats coming. We're going to read them throughout the haters. I am drinking. I've never had this before. Innis and Gun.
What is Innis and Gun?
Innis and Gun. It is a Scottish golden beer. Single malt.
Show us the label. Oh.
Yeah. Single malt whiskey cask matured. So here we go.
Is it good?
Wow. That's fabulous. That is absolutely fabulous.
It's actually kind of hilarious. I don't think I've ever done this before.
Colin, do we not have the sound effect? There we go. That's what I love. Okay, so Tina, I thought it would be a good idea, and keep those super chats coming. Thank you, Denise, 1999. It's been a while. Love you both. We're going to read them all. I thought it would be interesting, and by the way, I am wearing my Status Coup shirt, so representing. I thought it would be interesting because this week there's been all this Joe Rogan hubbubaloo. And all this focus on Joe Rogan, a lot of people, let's just face it, have been doing it for clicks.
100%.
I didn't cover it as much. I did one video on it, but I thought we should do happy hour on haters and really focus on Rogan, because to me, it's really unbelievable, Tina, that, and you and I, by the way, have not spoken about this yet. Like, we've spoken a little bit, but we have not talked about, hey, what's your take on X, Y, and Z? So I'll be learning completely new from you. But it's really amazing to me. I did a video the other day on Rogan, and literally within the first minute, what I said was, I do not think Joe Rogan should be censored. I do not think
everybody didn't hear that. I bet.
Right. I do not think Joe Rogan should be deplatformed.
Right.
Let me repeat. I do not think Joe Rogan should be deplatformed. I do not think Joe Rogan should be censored. But when I read the comments, it was almost like I was leading the charge to get him removed from Spotify. And this is the sickness online. And it's not just about Rogan, Tina. It's about just tribalism and cult followings, that if you dare criticize their leader, even if you're not calling for censorship, you're just saying he's fucking irresponsible. Because frankly, sorry to tell you folks, he has been irresponsible, and we're going to get to why. Even if you say that, you're calling for censorship. You're, with big tech and Big Brother and your establishment, Jordan. It was just amazing to me.
Though. They want him to have free reign to say whatever he wants, and they want him to be able to do that unchecked. That's the real problem.
Right.
The rest of us are allowed to also use our free speech. Did you see Sagar's tweet where he basically said he wants to ban TikTok? He wants to outright ban an entire platform. And if he had his way, and at the same time, he's pissing and moaning about the Joe Rogan stuff. So which way is it?
Just to give the man his respect, it's Sagar.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I did not see that tweet. Yeah, you're already drunk. But I wanted to get into this and smash that like button. Smash the like button right under the live stream. We're going to get to your super chats. But I wanted to get into this because it was really amazing to me, Tina. I literally said, I don't think Joe Rogan should be censored. I believe you don't think he should be taken off Spotify either.
No, I don't. Listen, I don't think censorship isn't the answer to problematic speech. More free speech is generally the answer to that. But at the same time, I don't think fact-checking and peer review equals censorship. It doesn't.
Right.
People should be fact-checked. People should be peer-reviewed.
But what's incredible to me, because all the coverage, even in channels I like, it's really been a pep rally for Rogan. And a lot of these channels have kind of been glossing over. No, he has actually said things that are demonstrably not true. And I could tell you, Tina, and I'm going to get to some of the hater comments. I could tell you because I've been traveling the country for 6 years. Okay. So this idea, nobody's going to Joe Rogan. Nobody's taking what he says seriously. It's just entertainment. Nobody actually takes medical advice from Joe Rogan.
They do.
I could tell you, not just with Joe Rogan, but in my experience interviewing thousands of people around this country, I'm talking right-wingers. I'm talking about neoliberal leftists. I'm talking young people. I'm talking old people across the gamut. I would say 60 to 70% of the things they were saying, it was Rush Limbaugh rolling off their tongue. It was Fox News rolling off their tongue. It was Rachel Maddow rolling off their tongue. It was all of partisan media rolling off their tongue. So this idea that, he's just a comedian or a UFC guy and nobody's like actually listening to what he says and then making health decisions, that's just not true. I don't have empirical data, Tina. I can't be like, Joe Rogan said this, and as a result, this many people didn't get vaccinated. Of course, we can't say that. But this naive, disingenuous, because there's people putting this out there, this disingenuous notion that whether it's Rogan or other people, that their listeners and their viewers aren't actually being influenced by the things that they say or the guests that they have on and then making decisions based on that, that's bullshit. Because I could tell you, like I said, from traveling and from interviewing thousands of people, we have a sickly, toxic partisan media. Even though Rogan doesn't fancy himself left-wing, right-wing, whatever, that's fine. But the things he has said does influence his audience. That's just the truth.
I don't think he's either right wing or left wing. I think he is anti-establishment, and I don't necessarily think that's a political school of thought. If it's not moored to any principle, and I've said this before, it could be kind of dangerous, actually. But I think the deeper problem is people live in echo chambers, so they're only listening people to tell them pleasing things. It doesn't matter whether those pleasing things are true or not. That's what they want to hear. And I think that's the bigger disease that we're seeing. And here's the other part of that. Not all knowledge in every area is equal. I don't have equal knowledge in epidemiology as an epidemiologist. That's just the way it is. And I know that. So I go talk to an epidemiologist if that's what I want to learn about.
Right.
The problem is that people want this to democratize knowledge, and that's just not a possibility because a lot of the times, specific areas of expertise require many years of training.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that. And that doesn't equal censorship. I just don't understand. This is what's causing a lot of radicalization, I think, in the country right now, and I think is really problematic.
And Tina,
that it's time for a sip.
I agree. Tina, before I get to the first hater topic, I want to repeat, because apparently nuance is not allowed on the internet. I am going to criticize Joe Rogan, and I don't give a fuck if you like it or not. If you don't like it, don't watch. If you can't take any criticism of Joe Rogan or other hosts that you agree with, you shouldn't watch. Disclaimer. With that disclaimer, I do not believe Joe Rogan should be removed from Spotify. Neither does Tina. So
that's right.
That's it. So I don't want to see any more comments. Jordan, you're calling for censorship. I am against him being removed. Now, I want to read the first hater comment because there's a lot of them. This one, Colin, page four of the document you sent. Hawaiian Kingdom Academia. Hawaiian Kingdom Academia. You said Joe Rogan has many guests that spread misinformation, but fail to name any guests. You said he's spreading misinformation, but failed to describe what the alleged misinformation is and by what standard. This is a failure in journalism. So Hawaiian, and I love Hawaii. I went there on my honeymoon. I don't know if you watched the original video I did, but I indeed detailed misinformation that Joe Rogan has put out. And I have said, to me, the bigger problem that I have seen with Joe Rogan, because no, I do not watch his or listen to his whole 3-hour thing. I don't have time for that. Some of the stuff I've seen from him, I like. I mean, I think, it's not all good or bad. Some of the stuff he's done, I like.
I like the Cornel West interview quite a bit, actually. I thought that was pretty solid.
Right. So I think
interview was solid.
Yeah, he's a talented interviewer. A lot of the stuff he's done, I enjoy. But I want to, Colin, if you could play. Oh, wow. I wish I was wearing it.
You can put it on over.
Wow. I just got my United Corporations of America shirt in the mail. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Colin, you might have to mute me. You might have to turn my video off at one point so I could change and put on my new United Corporations of America shirt. So
that's pretty cool.
Colin, could you play?
That's pretty cool.
I want to get to the misinformation part. Colin, could you play Joe Rogan Instagram video where he explicitly says, "I'm not a doctor, a medical person, or a scientist"?
Information. I do not know if they're right. I don't know because I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a person who sits down and talks to people and has conversations with them. Do I get things wrong? Absolutely. I get things wrong. But I
good. So right there, to his credit, he said, I don't know if the people I'm having on are right or wrong. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical person, this, that, either thing. Great. Okay. So if you're saying that and you're acknowledging that now, the major issue that I have had with Joe Rogan, and again, it's not all good or bad, Tina. There's some stuff I like. Colin, he just said he's not a doctor, medical person, this and that. Let's play towards the beginning of the pandemic what he said about whether young people should get vaccinated or not.
Okay.
People say, do you think it's safe to get vaccinated? I've said, yeah, I think for the most part it's safe to get vaccinated. I do. But if you're like 21 years old and you say to me, should I get vaccinated? I go, no. Yeah. Are you healthy? Are you a healthy person? Like, look, don't do anything stupid, but you should take care of yourself.
That makes no sense at all. What is he saying there? What, like, viruses only attack healthy people that are 21? That makes or older and not 21. That makes no sense. That's asinine.
But that's the point. The problem here is it has become on the interweb that if you dare criticize Joe Rogan or replace Joe Rogan, let's just say it's somebody with a cult.
We're not allowed to use our free speech to contradict his free speech.
But the point is, it's become this toxic thing that if you even criticize him, you're calling to censor him. And those two things are not the same thing. Freedom of speech.
No, they're not.
Freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from responsibility.
Or freedom from consequence.
Right. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom from responsibility. So I don't think he should be removed.
Government too. Do people realize that that's a pact with the government? It's not a pact between corporations, other individuals.
Right. So when Joe Rogan, he can't have it both ways. He can't say, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical person. I'm not a scientist. So I don't know if what the guests are saying is true. He didn't say this, but that could go for the same thing. I don't know if what I'm saying is true because when Joe Rogan with 11 million people listening, this naive, I think disingenuous idea that, Jordan, people listening to him, they're not actually going to make decisions on vaccination or COVID based on what he says.
But they are. I think they are.
Again, I have traveled for 6 years. I could tell you the people I interview, left wing, right wing, extreme conservative, neoliberal, Rachel Maddow lovers, the majority of the things that come out of their mouth, Tina, roll off the tongue, are coming from the people in the media they hear, whether it's right wing.
I would add Alex Jones to that list too.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I've seen people even that I agree with on a lot of things, left-wing shows that are making it seem like it's Joe Rogan. Nobody's listening to him for medical information. Well, I think you're wrong. Are people, if they're sick, saying, let me call Joe Rogan? No. But part of the media landscape we are in, Tina, is that people get their ideas and form their opinions based on people they trust. So people trust Joe Rogan. And I could tell you what I have a problem with there is Joe Rogan on Instagram. He says, hey, I don't have the expertise. I'm not a medical person. I'm not a doctor, this and that. But he just very casually, early on in this pandemic, where he had maybe in Joe Rogan's mind, yeah, if you're young and healthy and work out and eat kale, you should be fine.
Not true. That's not true. It's just not true. In fact, the only reason I'm not in a hospital is because I am vaccinated and boosted. I mean, truly.
Right. But the point, Tina, is what I'm trying to get at is we'll get to the guests he has on, but the notion that Joe Rogan, like that, what he did there is okay or responsible is ridiculous. He has zero medical expertise, zero epidemiological expertise, zero scientific expertise. He is a former game show host, UFC guy.
Wait, he's a former game show host? I did not know this.
Yeah, Fear Factor.
Now Fear Factor. That's right. I'd forgotten that. Okay, now I need another drink.
So again, he made that claim because in his uneducated about this opinion, yeah, you should be fine if you're just healthy. But again, and we showed this earlier in the week, but I'll just go down the list. Colin, NBC News.
So hang on a second.
Hold on. I just want to show this. Colin, NBC News. Young unvaccinated people are being hospitalized with COVID-19 as Delta variant spreads. Quote, we are seeing patients in their 20s and 30s who are otherwise healthy who are coming because of worsening symptoms. A Kansas doctor says young unvaccinated people are showing up at hospitals with COVID-19, in some cases being admitted to intensive care and put on ventilators. In disturbing numbers, health officials across the country have warned. Vaccination rates among younger people are lower than among older Americans, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. The agency's data show that slightly fewer than half of people in the U.S. age 18 to 24 and 25 to 39 are fully vaccinated. The number is even lower for children 12 to 18. So that's just one. That's just one article, Tina. I got a couple more. But the point is, what I would, and I'm not telling Joe Rogan what to say, but the point is when you have a mega audience,
you have a responsibility.
What he should say is, I would tell you, don't be asking me, talk to your doctor.
That's right.
What he should.
That's the difference between like you, I, him, other journalists, other podcasters, how you want to frame these things, is you and I wouldn't give medical advice to anybody, period. That wouldn't happen. And also when you interview people or when you're writing a story, you have an obligation to fact check what people are saying. And sometimes that requires you speaking with people you disagree with, but you do it anyway, because that's what the job is. So I think the problem I have is that he doesn't necessarily have a commitment to veracity. His excuse is, I'm just interviewing people. And part two of that is he is giving advice. So if he was just talking to people and letting these people talk, okay, fine, that's another thing. But he's not just doing that. He actually is giving advice. That's a problem.
Yeah.
I hadn't realized he had said that earlier. So
no. And to me, that's my main issue. I honestly, would I have Dr. Robert Malone on? No, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't, because I already know he's false. He's lying about being the founder of mRNA technology anyway. That technology took the research from hundreds of scientists. Right. What an egomaniac to claim that it's him.
Right. But the point is not like...
You can't obviously get me some IP and I'm just going to keep going here.
No. But my point, to me, the biggest issue is not the guests he has on. I think Joe Rogan's a really wealthy person. So in the same Instagram video, he says, you know, I research this stuff myself. I don't, you know, my thoughts aren't always well thought out, blah, 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 blah. Well, you're really wealthy, so you could probably hire a couple of producers or a couple more producers to
That's right.
fact check this stuff. So you could have these people on, but just to equip you with more information or actually take the time, not you, Joe Rogan, but people you could hire to actually look into their claims, see if there's any data to support it, see what the preponderance. So that way, Joe Rogan is better equipped to push back. Plenty of strong producers have made anchors who don't actually do any research look a lot smarter than they are.
Isn't that true? I need to find one of those guys.
But my point is, when Joe Rogan, again, towards the beginning of this pandemic, is just casually telling young people, yeah, I don't think you need to get vaccinated. If you're young and healthy, like, what are you doing? He doesn't have any background to make that claim. I mean, no, I'll read a little bit more. This is from
the scientific consensus is against what he's saying. That's the bigger issue. If he had actually looked into the scientific consensus, the peer review, he would realize that that's just a wrong claim.
Right. But also, again, and this is the problem, and I see the comment, bad take, Jordan, bad take. It is demonstrably true.
No, that it's not a bad take.
It is demonstrably true. Facts. And I'm going to show you more articles that young, healthy people have been hospitalized in ICUs and emergency rooms and become very sick with COVID. Yeah. There are 20s, people in their 20s and 30s and 40s that have died from COVID because they were unvaccinated. This is not opinion. This is fact. This is data.
Fact. Yeah.
So like people who are like, you know, don't criticize Joe Rogan. It is a fact, and I'm going to show you more facts that young, otherwise healthy people have become very sick from this, have been hospitalized from this, have died from this. Not in the same numbers as older people, but still not a small number of people dying. There are a lot of young, otherwise healthy people.
Yeah, it's a lower number, but I think the point is that these are avoidable deaths, and they're avoidable severe sicknesses.
Right. I'll keep going. Colin, WebMD. Almost all teens in the ICU with COVID were unvaccinated. This is from January. This is from this month. Nearly all teenagers admitted to intensive care units because of COVID-19 were unvaccinated, according to a new study published by the New England Journal of Medicine. 2 doses of the vaccine were, quote, highly effective against COVID-related hospitalizations and ICU admissions, or the receipt of life support. So that's teens. He said 21-year-olds, but I assume if he's telling healthy 21-year-olds, what do you think teenagers listening are going to think? Then we move on to this Guardian story.
Hang on. Apparently, agreeing with science makes you sound like TYT. I don't know who this commenter is, but this is ridiculous. He's obviously committed.
But this is the thing that keeps popping up. Where, all right, take the censorship and deplatforming off the table, because I'm not for that. Like, there are just things he has said that are demonstrably not true.
Yeah.
Did he mean anything? Did he mean to intentionally harm anybody? Probably not. He's probably just not taking it seriously. He's probably just not doing the research.
I am very concerned about the amount of individuals out there that are falling, and I do think it's falling prey to medical misinformation. For some reason, a group of people are prone to this, and this is not anything new. You can go back to 10 years ago when anti-vaccine rhetoric first entered the universe. And back then it was Dr. Wakefield who ended up losing his license to practice, had a very poorly constructed study that he also fabricated information in. So, but that for some reason took hold and it never went away. It's only been growing since then. And it concerns me because I don't think this is a right versus a left thing. It's a sort of an anti-science response, but I don't think the individuals engaging in it realize that they're being anti-science. I think the root cause, really, if you ask me, is that there's a massive distrust, and this distrust is earned, and it's definitely for good reason, because I have it too, but I just know how to channel it differently. But it's a distrust for government. It's a distrust for corporations. It's a distrust for regulatory capture. And all of that is sort of bleeding into science. So now every researcher, medical researcher, every biological individual that works in medical research, every MD, et cetera, they've all become part of this giant conspiracy that is out to kill people with vaccines. And that's simply not true. The reason science is so sound and can be trusted is because of peer review, is because of consensus building. It's not one individual doing one experiment. It's not one individual doing one study. It's everybody looking at everybody else's work along the way and allowing for things to get checked.
Right. But I also think, to me, one of the biggest problems, and I see the comments, and so be it. I'm not gonna placate people. I'm gonna say what I actually think. To me, like, I'm actually I'm even seeing comments, Jordan, only like 0.001% of young people have died. Do you know that's a lot of people?
That is a huge amount of people.
Do you know that's a lot? Do you know that's a lot of people globally?
It's unavoidable on top of it. I don't understand the laissez-faire attitude.
People that put these numbers out like, oh, it's less than 1%, this and that. Do you know globally how many people that is dying that don't have to die? Do you know that, like, literally I'm putting out article after article showing young people filling up hospitals, unvaccinated people in ICUs. Here's another one from The Guardian. ICU is full of the unvaccinated. My patience with them is wearing thin. So this is from the secret consultant. This is somebody in the United Kingdom who works in hops around hospital to hospital, but works in hospitals. I want to move down.
It's like a travel nurse.
Yeah, travel nurse. I want to move down to the part that caught my eye. But the story is different on our intensive care unit. Here, the patient population consists of a few vulnerable people with severe underlying health problems and a majority of fit, healthy, younger people unvaccinated by choice. Again, here, the patient population consists of a few vulnerable people with severe underlying health problems and a majority of fit, healthy, younger people unvaccinated by choice. So again, a lot of people have Jordan believes mainstream media. So let me ask you guys a question.
It's not mainstream media, it's science. What part of that are these?
So let me ask people a question. This is what's bothering me, Tina. Do people think that like these articles and this data and these facts are just made up? Do they think that hospitals are just making up that young people are in ICUs?
Yeah, some of them do, because I've interviewed them. It's really scary, the amount of crazy conspiracy theory that's floating around this stuff. It's really, it's worrisome to me, because I don't think these are necessarily bad people that believe this stuff, but they've been led down a dark path, and I don't know what we do about it.
Right. And by the way, again, natural immunity is better than the vaccine for young people.
No,
that's also not true. That's also not true. So it's kind of like
the rate of reinfection for COVID is quite high. You don't develop natural immunity. Please stop saying that, folks. I personally know people in my life who are unvaccinated, and I wish I could change that, who have been infected with COVID in the hospital twice.
Right. And new data is coming out that Omicron infection doesn't give you a ton of natural immunity. Natural immunity is like vaccine immunity. You have immunity for a certain amount of time, but it wanes over time. But I want to get back to Rogan, particularly.
Dr. Malone does not, he's been fact checked all over the place. Again, these folks are just picking and choosing what data they look at. They only want to look at stuff that is pleasing to them. They're not looking at the whole of science. I mean, honestly, our chat right now is just a sort of
it's a lot of anti-vaxxers. It's fine.
Yeah.
But Tina, I guess what I'm trying to get at, and what drives me crazy, is I don't know why we've gotten to this place that you can't actually criticize certain hosts, and if you dare criticize them, the actual merits of what you're criticizing them on, people just do like this whataboutism. So I've heard this a lot this week. Oh, but what about CNN and MSNBC? What about them? I criticize them all the time. So
exactly.
we should only focus on misinformation from corporate media. But if Joe Rogan is telling young, healthy people, you're fine, you don't need to get vaccinated, we shouldn't point out that that's false. We shouldn't point out that that's reckless, that he's saying that, because the mainstream media does a lot of misinformation. I mean, I cover mainstream media. I'm always calling out CNN and MSNBC, but there's this whataboutism that has been flourishing, and people just they're not even looking at the claims on the merits when it comes to Rogan.
No, they're not.
It's just this tribalism, like, oh, you don't listen or you don't watch or this is my guy or this and that. The fact of the matter is, he made a claim, which I have pointed out, that if you're young and healthy, you don't have to get vaccinated. That is reckless to say, because he doesn't have the knowledge or expertise to make those claims, and he does influence. He does influence the way his audience thinks and ultimately what they do. Now, you could turn, Tina, you could turn to the kind of guests he has on this and that. Listen, there's a lot of Dr. Malone's and Robert Kennedy Jr.'s out there, not just when it comes to COVID, but when it comes to pretty much name your topic. I guess my thing with that, and I was happy that he said this, was he wants to have these free-flowing conversations and have these controversial guests on. Okay, have them on. I'm not going to tell you who to have on, but you can't have it both ways where you're like, well, I do the research and I'm not a doctor or medicine, so I don't know if what they're saying is true.
Should be doing the research. Every time I did my own research, it's generally followed by the most misinformed statement I've ever read.
But the thing is, it's like, I don't know if what they're saying is true or not. Okay, then why are you having them on then? Or if you're having them on, if you don't know if what they're saying is true or not, then you're basically just giving a massive megaphone. You're basically just giving a massive megaphone to people that are making claims that you either don't have the expertise or the time to know if what they're saying is true. So instead of just having them on for 3 hours and you're basically saying, well, I don't know if it's true or not, why not either have the money, hire producers so you are well researched and well equipped with facts, you are well equipped with claims they're making where the preponderance of evidence disproves it and you could push back on them on that? Or why not have them on with a separate medical expert,
right,
and have a debate? So
yeah, that makes sense.
It's, to me, it's fine if he doesn't necessarily know if everything they're saying is true. But Crystal Ball made a good point. She said, I'm not, he could have these cranks on. Crystal said, I personally wouldn't have Robert Malone on because, number one, he says a lot of irresponsible things. But number two, I'm not equipped to know or fact check. Yeah. I'm not equipped to know or fact check in real time. Basically, I could be had, is what she was saying. I'm not equipped. So the thing is, I would rather, I'm not saying never have controversial people on, but if you're having them on, you're basically just giving them a 3-hour infomercial if you're not equipped.
Yeah.
If you're not equipped to challenge them.
I agree with that. Cheers.
Right.
I agree with that.
Absolutely. So let's read some super chats and then we'll move on. Thank you for the super chat. $10. Ginger Gal. Cheers, Status Coup. Denise, $19.99. It's been a while. Love you both. Nice. Thank you. Presents, $5. I hate your show. Just kidding. Love you guys. This just in. This just in. Neil Young to release final album. Out to pasture. Taco Cruiser, $5. Jordan, your show has been unfairly suppressed by the algorithm. Tell me about it. Has this affected your perspective on censorship and deplatforming in general? I mean, I'm telling you, I don't think you should be censored. So this is a really complicated, nuanced conversation, and I don't understand why people want to boil this down to something really simple. I'm not for censorship. I am close to a First Amendment absolutist. That doesn't mean that things shouldn't be fact-checked, peer-reviewed, or that all knowledge is equal. There is an obligation for any journalist, or I'm going to say for any podcaster, I'm going to extend that, to have a commitment to veracity. And when you don't, that's when it becomes problematic. Right.
That's just my opinion.
And by the way, I actually don't think, I don't know him, I don't think Joe Rogan is intentionally trying to misinform him. I really don't. I think Joe Rogan has kind of like become, I don't know if the word is too big, but I think his show has succeeded beyond his wildest expectations. And now he's trying to have these guests on topics that, again, I think part of his charm is he's kind of like the everyman, and he knows similar things as like working class people that listen to him. So he's almost like learning as he goes. And that's fine for a whole lot of topics. The problem is when it's a topic that's about a life or death pandemic.
Yeah.
Like this whole, I'm just having conversations. Well, the conversations you're having are very influential. And I don't think Joe Rogan, ultimately, it's the viewers and the listeners. If they're not going to get vaccinated, if they're not going to do certain things, it's on them. But we should not totally abdicate, whether it's Rogan or other people. If they have a massive audience or any audience, you have a responsibility not just to have interesting conversations, but to actually, to the best of your ability, try and put out what is actually known. And the thing is, this is a novel pandemic. So Rogan put out in his Instagram video, there's a lot of things that 6 months ago to a year ago were considered misinformation that are now known as fact. That's true. But that's,
well, of course that's true, but science is constantly progressing and changing. You can't be married to one opinion and then not move your opinion when more knowledge is learned or more data has been acquired. That's the point.
Absolutely. Let's keep going. MHC tipped $5. I understand the criticism of Joe Rogan considering the size of his audience, but I'm more concerned about anti-mandate truck drivers, protesters essentially holding the city of Ottawa in Canada hostage for a week.
That's a problem too.
Which at least when I checked this morning is still ongoing. Oh, is that the freedom?
There, not only is it ongoing, I just was sent something this morning in my Signal that they are now trying to plan dates to come to the United States.
Oh, wonderful. So, yeah, but honestly, to me, the whole vaccine mandate, first not mandate, to me, that is a fair debate. You could have a debate about this. Yeah. We might disagree, but that's a fair debate.
Yeah.
So not all things, we're not like the Ministry of Truth here where we're saying, no, there's just facts, this and that. There are certain things that I'm fine with being debated, and I understand why people have different viewpoints on it. But when people start, when you're presenting people with facts, Joe Rogan told young people not to get vaccinated. A hell of a lot of young people are being hospitalized. There are young people who are dying. And by the way, there are young people who are having long-term symptoms. I just spoke with a doctor yesterday. Long COVID is something nobody is really talking about. There's some attention.
That's the problem of the bigger problem, I think, because that's going to affect more people for years going forward.
Absolutely. So, but to me, it's really unbelievable because people just, if you at all point out, no, I'm not saying to be censored. I'm not saying censor him, but I am saying he's been irresponsible here and there. They can't take that nuance, and they can't even take the mild criticism. And then they tell you, no.
Do you think nobody should be fact checked? I mean, God, even I should be fact checked. But listen, if I fuck up, I'm going to say I did and apologize and correct what I said. Too many people can't do that, and it's really unfortunate. Why double down on misinformation? But generally when people say things that are wrong, they don't do it with intention. You just discover like, oh shit, okay, thank you for that. You know what I'm saying?
Right, but also nobody that I could see, and the people, being negative Nancy's in the chat, nobody is seeing the contradiction here. When on one end he's literally saying, I don't know if it's true. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm not this. I'm not that. But I'm going to casually be like, yeah, if you're young, don't worry about it. Those two things are at odds. You can't have it both ways. If you want to say, I don't know, I don't want it, don't ask me, talk to your doctor.
I don't know. Like, if you don't know, don't give out medical advice. Just say you don't know. I wonder, though, so he said that, when did he make that video you played was in January? I wonder if he would walk that back now. And if he hasn't, he should.
Oh, no, that video where he told young people not to get vaccinated, that was, I'm pretty sure, early to mid last year.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Yeah. The Instagram video was just this week, him responding to, and I think some of the things he said in the Instagram video were good. He seemed contrite on certain things. He said, I want to do a better job of having, if I'm going to
intentionally being a bad person at all. I don't think he's that guy. I think,
Right. But I also think people, and I'm going to get to this comment too. Taco Cruiser, $2. Fauci said masks don't work in early 2020. This is the kind of what about
progresses, exactly. And he changed his opinion on that because he got more information. Science progresses, opinions change based on when you acquire data and information. You have to understand at the beginning of this pandemic, there was very little known. It was a novel virus. This is the first time this strain of a coronavirus has crossed over into the human population. So there was a lot of unknowns. So they set out to get more information, and all of those advices changed. I don't understand why people keep bringing back old things that doctors said when they didn't know better, when they've now come out and changed that. Please don't do that. It doesn't make any sense.
That one you're wrong on, and I will drink.
I will.
So Fauci. No. Fauci literally said, "Yeah, we said that for people not to wear masks because there was a shortage of masks, and we wanted to prioritize masks."
Oh, well, that's really fucked up. I thought,
but so Fauci, it's not like science was changing. Fauci knew, and they knew masks would help people.
Taking that position after the fact, just because he was dealing with a crisis of not having enough masks, that's really jacked up.
He later admitted, I mean, masks are important, but we had a shortage of masks. We had a shortage of masks. So Fauci's no innocent flower.
Let me clarify another position. I don't like Fauci. I think he has mishandled this pandemic from start to finish. And in fact, he's definitely part of the problem as to why misinformation is spreading. I don't think,
But what I was getting at, and this is the thing. So Taco Cruiser said $2. Fauci said masks don't work in early 2020. You're right. I just pointed out he was lying. He knew he was lying. But what does that have to do with Joe Rogan? This is what I don't get. When you criticize Joe Rogan, people immediately, but what about CNN? What about all the misinformation in mainstream media? Do you watch this channel? I spent
listen, I'm going to criticize anybody that's putting out wrong information. It's not
right.
Like anybody that's saying that is assuming there's a bias to begin with. And that's the problem. That's projection, maybe. I don't know.
But I don't get this whataboutism, because I've even seen it on channels that I like where they just immediately move off of Rogan, personally, because they want to keep their rotation of going on Rogan. Let's be honest. A lot of these channels that are supporting Rogan have either been on with Rogan or would like to continue going on with Rogan because it helps their channels. I ain't hating it. I'd love to go on with Rogan too. But the point is, people need to stop deflecting. The topic is Joe Rogan. So CNN has pushed out a whole lot of crazy, terrible shit. Same with MSNBC, the New York Times and them lied us into a war. We could walk and chew gum. You could legitimately have criticisms of Joe Rogan, some casually reckless things he has said. The fact that he's had on some guests, he could have them on if he wants. I'm not telling him who to have on, but don't just have them on for 3 hours to spew stuff if you don't have enough knowledge. Yeah, and you're not going to fact check it at all, because that's not a conversation. That's an infomercial. You're basically giving people who, there's a reason that the majority of the scientific consensus says they're wrong. Now, some people say, Jordan, that makes you big pharma. That makes you this. No, I'm listening to scientists. I'm listening to nurses. I'm listening to doctors. These people, do you think there's some dark cabal going on that all of these doctors, all of these nurses, all of these hospitals are just lying? Because if you do, I don't know how to have a conversation with people like that. If they think that...
It's a conflation. I mean, listen, big pharma money is a problem. I think that the one thing we should be discussing when it comes to big pharma money is the fact that we fund most of the research that goes into vaccines and other science, not just vaccines. It comes from taxpayers, right? It's NIH money. It's also the German government pitched in money on one of the vaccines. So why are they allowed to keep their patents? How does this make sense? Meanwhile, there are those in the global south and poor nations that cannot get the vaccines because they're holding onto their patents. That's really messed up. That is a form of corruption that should be discussed, and really these patents need to be revoked. It's almost as if they are capitalizing the profits and socializing the research, the risk. They're not taking the risk on. The taxpayers are. So to me, this is really what's messed up. But like everything, there's a lot of nuance in conversation that's not happening anymore. People are just getting dug into their positions. And I just don't know what to say about that. I see it all the time on Twitter.
No, it's tribalism. That's what it is. So like you could be a fan of Joe Rogan. I like some of his stuff, but still criticize Joe Rogan if he's said or done things wrong.
Exactly.
But like the reaction now is, if you dare criticize Joe Rogan, you're big pharma. No, you're lying, Jordan. No, I'm like, okay, so all the articles I'm showing you are just making up that young people are being hospitalized for COVID. Here's another one, Colin, Time Magazine. These charts show that COVID-19 is still the pandemic of the unvaccinated. So if you go into this story, let me find it. Hold on. Further, most patients hospitalized as a result of a breakthrough infection in recent weeks have had underlying health conditions. Take, for example, the 128 COVID-19 patients at Michigan Medicine, the hospital system affiliated with the University of Michigan, on January 10th. Of the 49 vaccinated patients, only 9 were younger than 65, not immunocompromised, and didn't have a significant underlying lung disease. Of the 79 unvaccinated patients, 34 were similarly young and healthy. So I don't know how much more like evidence, articles, hospitalization data that you could show to show Joe Rogan. Maybe he didn't mean anything by it, but he was wrong to tell young people, don't worry about it. You don't need to get vaccinated. And when you show that young people are being hospitalized, are showing up in ICUs, we haven't even gotten to long COVID because that's a thing too.
Honestly, can I just say it's really depressing that this is even a conversation we're having. It's just so tragic to me that vaccines have been so put in this light. Like, how did this happen? And, you know, in fact, I talked to a doctor on Wednesday. I interviewed for my podcast next week, and he was telling me that there were anti-vaxxers back in the day when polio was happening, and they had like arguments about if because of the bovine relationship and how they were created, that if you had the smallpox or the polio vaccine, you would end up being a cow or some crap, like weird stuff, right? But I think, you know, part of the difference was back then there was no internet, there was no social media, so that stuff didn't spread like wildfire through the population. But it's just really frustrating to me that this is even a conversation, because the vaccine science is sound. It saves lives.
But again, to me, it's bigger than just COVID and vaccines. It's about the toxic shift in internet culture. Where because Joe Rogan's a dime a dozen. There's a lot. I mean, not everybody has a huge audience like Joe Rogan, but Joe Rogan isn't the main problem. To me, the main problem is people have gone into tribes. So if you're if you're a diehard Joe Rogan listener and you're watching this right now, you're probably not even listening to what I'm telling you. You're probably not even like the articles I'm reading that are showing, oh, wait, there's a whole lot of healthy young people who are getting pretty sick with COVID and having to be hospitalized. There are young people. Somebody said, oh, it's like 0.001. You're talking millions of people, not just old people, but young people that have died from this. So basically, we've gotten to this point. Well, if you're a cult Rogan follower, then you're just going to tell me I'm wrong. That the articles you're showing me, it doesn't matter. The fact that they're coming from hospitals, it doesn't matter. The fact that it's coming from doctors and nurses who are not like paid off by Pfizer, they're not working for Pfizer. That, like, I have interviewed nurses, I've interviewed doctors. They genuinely care. They genuinely are going through the ringer for over 2 years. They genuinely have PTSD, dealing with mass death around them, and in many cases, wartime conditions they're dealing with. They're not part of some cabal to lie to you about who's dying from COVID and who's not, who's getting seriously ill and who's not. So I just wish, to me, the broader problem is there is no nuance allowed. You can't say, I'm for free speech. I'm not calling for him to be censored, but here's where I think he's been grossly irresponsible. And frankly, look at these other channels. I mean, it would be a lot more advantageous for me and for you.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
To go rah Joe Rogan. I mean, we would be doing a lot better if we were rah Joe Rogan, but we would be trading our integrity and not actually giving the facts and saying what we genuinely believe. And I'm not going to do that. I'd rather not do this for a living than just play for clicks and follow whatever.
I'm with you on that. So many of these conversations require nuance. That's the problem. It's not the problem. It is actually a requirement that they need nuance. The problem is that people don't want to accept nuance anymore.
So this comment, thank you, because no offense, thanks for the super chat. I have a problem with this. And I haven't read all the super chats, but I'll get to them. So Steo Jabs, $4.99. Nope. Wrong. I'm seeing a pattern of journalists trying to make Joe a journalist. He does not have the same ethical constraints of a news reporter. Wrong. That is completely wrong. This would basically be saying, well, Bill O'Reilly, because he's a right-wing shock jock, he's just an opinion guy. He doesn't have any responsibility. So if he's pushing out dangerous shit against Dr. George Tiller, remember the abortion thing where Bill O'Reilly was pushing out Tiller the killer against an abortion doctor, and they don't have a journalistic responsibility to be factual. That is not true. No, Joe Rogan has 11 million listeners. Does he have a responsibility? Like, do we consider him the same as Abby Martin? Do we consider him the same as Greg Palast? Do we consider him the same as name a journalist you actually respect? No. But that doesn't mean just because he's a podcaster, he does not have a responsibility for the things he is saying and the guests that are coming on and what they're saying. Nobody gets everything right. I'm not holding him to a standard of perfection. But this idea that he's just a podcaster, he doesn't have the same ethical constraints. So you're telling me he doesn't have 11 million listeners. He doesn't have an ethical responsibility to the best of his ability to make sure a guest he has on isn't spewing really, really dangerous information that could get people killed. He has no ethical responsibility to make sure that he's not giving 3-hour infomercials because he said literally, I don't know if what they're saying is true. Well, to me, that's unethical. If you don't know if what they're saying is true and you're giving them 3 hours to say it, and you are not capable, not because you're stupid, because I'm not capable. I'm not capable of going toe to toe with Robert Malone because I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a medical expert. So
right. But these are no longer interviews. You're right. So listen, you can interview somebody without platforming them, or you can just simply platform somebody. And I think that's the big difference here. Do I agree 100% with everybody I interview? No, not even remotely. That's ridiculous. But at the same time, if I'm going to platform somebody in the way that you're talking about, there is a responsibility for that. You can't, there's veracity matters. Veracity matters if you have an audience, period. I don't care if you're a journalist or not. If you're in the media, you should have a responsibility to veracity.
But it's also, Tina, I think it goes deeper than that. Veracity matters. It's a whole different category when you're talking about a pandemic.
Oh yeah, it's worse because
you don't have these people coming on to talk about, I don't know, Stormy Daniels. Like you have these people on to give for their controversial views on whether people should take a vaccine for COVID, how vulnerable certain people are, certain age groups are to COVID, what public health.
There's actually data that you can show on that. There's objective truth in the world. Let's look at that. He could be doing that. I agree with you.
So this notion that, he's not a journalist, he doesn't have the same ethical constraints. No. If you are giving people advice, if you're telling young people, you don't have to get vaccinated. That I don't care if you're a Walter Cronkite or Joe Rogan. If you're giving medical advice, and even one person might take that advice and make a decision that could kill them. Yeah, no, that's pretty unethical if you don't take that seriously. That's pretty unethical. And by the way, again, this is where I have the problem again with Rogan, where he wants to have it both ways. In the Instagram video, he says, well, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical person. I'm not a scientist. So I don't know if what they're saying is true. Okay. But freedom of speech is fine. I'm not calling for him to be deplatformed, but that's not freedom from responsibility. Or
consequence.
Right. So I appreciate the super chat. I think that's wrong. And I think that's a huge reason, forget COVID for a second, why we have so many fucking misinformed people in this country.
Yeah, I agree.
Because there are very few, and this goes to CNN and MSNBC too. I'm not just talking about podcasters. There are so few. There's so little standards for actual veracity. Perfect example. We don't have the video right now. A journalist actually challenged a State Department.
We need to play that. Can we have Colin find that? It's on YouTube, because this is what a reporter should be doing. Period. End of story. It's genius. It's a Mike from the AP.
Let me see, because I actually saved it.
Jordan, we got to play that, because this. Wait. Cheers to Mike. Mike, you are a hell of a journalist for this. This is like the best clip I've seen in like 5 years. We have to play this.
One second. Colin, I just sent it to you. But what we're about to play, and again, do I expect Joe Rogan? Well, let's play the clip first, and then we could kind of talk about it as far as Rogan. Colin, let me know when you have it. I just texted it to you. But this was actually an AP journalist, so I don't know what got into him, because usually the AP is just a stenographer for the powerful. But the State Department was putting out, just without evidence, which they generally do all the time.
They do it all day long, and we know that they've lied a million times about intelligence and a host of other things. So Mike basically said he'd had enough. He's like, where's the evidence?
Well, I want to set up. So basically, the State Department was pushing that the United States government and intelligence has found evidence, or found that Putin and Russia is setting up a false flag propaganda video. That Putin and Russia is creating a false flag video where they're going to stage an attack where Ukraine attacks Russia as a pretext to Russia invading Ukraine. And there was going to be crisis actors and mourners and all this stuff. Obviously, the State Department and the U.S. government provided zero evidence for this. Right. And a reporter, I don't know what got into him, because you never see this. A reporter, let's play it.
Yeah, it's so good.
Thanks. Okay, well, that's quite a mouthful there. So you said actions such as these suggest otherwise. Suggest meaning that they suggest they're not interested in talks and they're going to go ahead with some kind of what action are you talking about?
One, the actions I've just pointed to. The fact that Russia continues to engage in disinformation campaigns.
You made an allegation that they might do that. Have they actually done it?
What we know, Matt, is what I've just said, that they have engaged in this activity, in this planning activity. But let me because obviously this is not the first time we've made these reports public. You'll remember that just a few weeks ago.
I'm sorry, made what report public?
If you'll let me finish, I will tell you what report we made public. We told you a few weeks ago that we have information indicating Russia also has already prepositioned a group of operatives to conduct a false flag operation in eastern Ukraine. So that, Matt, to your question, is an action that Russia has already taken.
It's an action that you say that they have taken, but you have shown no evidence to confirm that. And I'm going to get to the next question here, which is, what is the evidence that they? This is like crisis actors, really. This is like Alex Jones territory. You're getting into that. What evidence do you have to support the idea that there is some propaganda film in the making?
Matt, this is derived from information known to the U.S. government, intelligence information that we have declassified. I think you know.
Okay, well, where is it? Where is this information?
It is intelligence information that we have declassified.
Well, where is it? Where's the declassified information?
I just delivered
it. No, you made a series of allegations and statements.
Would you like us to print out the topper? Because you will see a transcript of this briefing that you can print out for yourself.
That's not evidence, Ned. That's you saying it. That's not evidence. I'm sorry.
What would you like, Matt?
I would like to see some proof that you can show that
Matt,
that shows that the Russians are doing this. Ned, I've been doing this for a long time.
I know, that was my point. You have been doing this for quite a while. You know that when we declassify intelligence information, we do so in a means. We do so with an eye to protecting sources and methods.
Is not going to fall. I remember a lot of things. So where is the declassified information other than you coming out here and saying?
Matt, I'm sorry you don't like the format, but we have
It's not the format; it's the content.
I'm sorry you don't like the content. I'm sorry
It's
you.
not that I
I'm
don't
sorry
like
you
it,
are
we're
doubting the information that is in the possession of the U.S. government.
No,
What I'm telling you is that this is information that's available to us. We are making it available to you in order for a couple reasons. One is to attempt to deter the Russians from going ahead with this activity. Two, in the event we're not.
So
I love this so much.
So I want to be clear. I don't expect Joe Rogan to challenge Dr. Robert Malone to that degree because he's not a journalist. But the point is, what that journalist just did,
So good.
they were sending out, the State Department was sending out complete bullshit. Just, oh, I just gave you the evidence. Well, where is the evidence? Well, I just told you, so that's the evidence. I'm telling you this is what Russia is doing. But
wait. Jordan, my favorite part is when he says, you can print out the transcript from the briefing.
Right. But the point is, whether Joe Rogan's a journalist or not, like if you are talking about a serious topic that has life or death consequences, it's not just some casual conversation. That's the point. He is saying, I'm just having conversations. These are not just conversations about, what movie we should watch at the matinee. These are conversations that have life or death stakes. So is he allowed to be wrong? Yeah, we all are wrong. Everybody gets things wrong. The problem is what degree, how hard are you trying not to get things wrong? What is your process to try and get it right? So when somebody says, this is from Bruce OO, $10 in the super chat. Joe said, if a 21-year-old is asking me, I'd say no, don't get vaccinated. He's saying that as a layperson, he wouldn't recommend it. I don't see that as wrong if he qualifies it as a lay opinion. First of all, if you want, Colin, can we play that clip one more time? Him telling young people not to get vaccinated.
People say, do you think it's safe to get vaccinated? I've said, yeah, I think for the most part, it's safe to get vaccinated. I do. But if you're like 21 years old and you say to me, should I get vaccinated? I go, no.
Yeah.
I just don't understand that.
But
That's
he's
just
not, he's not being like, he's saying no.
Yeah.
He was emphatically saying no. Are you healthy? Like, so this, like, I respect, thank you for the super chat. I respect what you're saying. He was emphatically saying no. Are you healthy? Colin, if you could play the rest of it.
This might make sense for people that have the ability to sort of wade through bullshit and say like, okay, I don't agree with what Joe's saying here. He's not giving me an informed opinion. I can ignore that. But the problem is there are plenty of people that don't have that ability and are sort of might be affected. Yeah, and they might be affected by this in a bad way. I think QAnon is a really good example of this. You now have QAnon supporters that are literally pouring their own urine over their eyes because they've been told that will like prevent them from getting COVID. Right.
Like, but Tina, again,
not that Joe's done that, but I'm just saying, like, I mean, there's a susceptible group of people out there that just don't know how to decide what they should listen to or not. And I don't know what you do about that. But
the thing is, again, and I appreciate the super chat, but it's not like he's saying as a layman, don't listen. I'm just a layman, so don't take it from me. He was emphatically in that clip saying no. He said, "Are you healthy?" Colin, play it again.
Like if anybody that thinks I'm lying
say,
about,
do you think it's safe?
Go to my Twitter. Sorry, people are saying that this isn't true, and it is true. Go to my Twitter, you'll see it. Okay, carry on.
Get vaccinated. I've said, yeah, I think for the most part, it's safe to get vaccinated. I do. But if you're like 21 years old and you say to me, should I get vaccinated? I go, no. Yeah. Are you healthy? Are you a healthy person? Like, look, don't do anything stupid, but you should take care of yourself.
Okay. So again, he's not just being like, hey, as a layman, I don't know anything, so don't listen to me. But if it were me, he's saying, no, are you healthy? So like to me, and this, I'm a journalist, but to me, to say that so emphatically, casually, And by the way, to think like that doesn't have any influence on the people that are listening to him.
But here's the thing, Jordan. I think he actually believes that to be true. So maybe, here's the thing. Maybe Joe has also been led down a path where some of the stuff he's hearing, he believes it's not true, is true. Like there's just a giant problem in our society with misinformation. So, I mean, the question becomes for me, like what responsibility does media have for that? And I think we have a history where, media, journalism used to be part of the public service. It was a public good, right? The only reason journalists did what they did was to inform the public, and they were very concerned about telling the truth. Well, that went away when profiteering, like every other industry, when profiteering became the main goal of journalism, right? All of that stuff started to like fade away. And, we had something called the fairness doctrine for decades that required anybody in the media to give like a certain amount of time to the opposite opinion. That was a way of fact checking, right? Or at least providing people with a different viewpoint. All of that going away has really created an environment where if somebody is hearing something that might be true, but it's displeasing, they just tune it out. And they go back into their like sort of echo chamber of stuff. It's really a problem. And I just don't know how you fix it at this point. I really don't.
Absolutely. Let me read some more super chats as Tina drinks.
Okay.
Daspo, hold on. I don't want to miss any. Daspo Flies, $4.99. I wasn't among the first people who got vaccinated because I wanted to wait and see. Then the data in favor of vaccines became overwhelming. That's fair. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I've said to people who don't want to get vaccinated, I think you're wrong, but it's your choice. If you don't want to get vaccinated, like I'm not Big Brother with the needle. So it's your choice. It's your choice. Yeah. I think at this point, if you're not.
Let me just say this. It is your choice. Nobody's forcing you to get vaccinated, but there are consequences for that. I think what people want is to have no consequences for that decision, but that's not going to happen.
Right.
Carry on.
Denise, $49.99. Holy cow.
Wow.
Denise, thank you. I went to Cabo with my husband, who's now brainwashed by Rogan. He purchased the worming medication to take prophylactically. I am an RN, and I just about puked. Rogan is dangerous, and he is ripping my marriage apart for real. Well, first of all, I hope your husband's doing well.
That dewormers, the dewormer, not all ivermectin is the deworm, but if you're buying the animal grade, there are people that have poisoned themselves with this, and it causes blindness. I don't know if people realize that. Don't take stuff. Don't.
Right. And by the way, that's just one other example. Here's another example. Colin, do you have the tweet from Reuters? The tweet from Reuters that says correction, if you could put that up. So right after Rogan did this 10-minute video saying, I'm going to try to do better, this and that, he retweeted a Reuters story that claimed that Japan said in the ivermectin in trials they're doing is showing an antiviral effect against Omicron and other variants of coronavirus. Well, the only problem with that, and Colin, if you have the actual article, the Japanese trading and pharmaceutical company Kawa on Monday said that anti-parasite drug ivermectin showed, quote, an antiviral effect against Omicron and the coronavirus variants in joint non-clinical research. The company, which has been working with Tokyo's Kitasato University on testing the drug as a potential treatment for COVID, did not provide further details. The original Reuters story misstated that ivermectin was, quote, effective against Omicron in phase 3 clinical trials, which are conducted in human. So basically, Reuters put out a story making it seem like in clinical trials, ivermectin was found to be useful as an antiviral against COVID. The problem was it wasn't even a clinical trial. But again, Rogan just retweeted that because it would prove what he has been saying all along. He then deleted that. He then deleted the retweet because, again, people are just, I don't think he's intentionally trying to mislead, but people like Reuters corrected it literally within 20 minutes. So I don't think people are trying. I don't think he's trying to mislead. I just think he's not capable of.
No, I think a lot of people want to share information that they can backpedal into their already existing bias. I call this antecedent bias in philosophy. We call it that, which means you're only going to listen to information that you find pleasing or already fits your conclusion. So when people see something online that they're like, yes, that's exactly right, because they already believe that, they're like, I'm going to retweet that. I'm going to share that. I'm going to, you know what I mean? And then that's how you sort of end up in your echo chamber. I don't know how you prevent that from happening more. It's sort of an innate human thing.
I don't either. But Denise, I just want to say thank you for the super chat. I'm not a therapist, but I hope your marriage makes it. I'm sorry to hear that your marriage is having issues.
Wait, what? Oh, I thought.
Yeah, she said, I'm an RN and I just about puked. Rogan is dangerous and he is ripping my marriage apart. Yeah. Like, I hope everything works out with your marriage. I'm sure Joe Rogan's not your only issue, but I'm pulling for you, Denise. Denise, $9.99, another one. I can't criticize Rogan at all. It is so weird. Things change, like Tina said. We are living in real time. Don't tell anyone, Denise. They might call you a big pharma. They might call you a big pharma shill.
Right.
Taco Cruiser, $2. I read this. Fauci said masks don't work in early 2020, and he lied. Yes. Look at that. You could criticize Joe Rogan. You could criticize Fauci. You could criticize CNN. It's not either or, folks. Misinformation is misinformation.
I'm not a fan of Fauci. I don't think has handled this well. I think we already went through that.
Misinformation is misinformation. And by the way, there are some who know they're pushing misinformation. I actually don't think Joe Rogan actively, when he says stuff, knows it's not true. I don't think he has those. I don't think he has those kind of intentions. But whatever the intent is, when, you know, and I'm sorry to the people who say, well, Jordan, how many of those young people recovered? So, okay. So your point is, if all of those young people that are being hospitalized don't die, that means Joe Rogan's right and they shouldn't have gotten vaccinated?
Plus, we have long COVID. People need to think about that too. It's not just the respiratory illness.
But I'm literally asking people saying that, well, Jordan, how many of those young people recovered? So your standard is, if they don't die, then that means Joe Rogan is right. It doesn't matter if they had to be in the ICU. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they had to be in the emergency room. It doesn't matter if they contracted it and passed it off to others. It doesn't matter if they have long-term symptoms, because there's a whole lot of people developing long COVID. Joe Rogan is right to tell young people not to get vaccinated as long as they don't die from COVID.
Right.
It just doesn't. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense to me either, because I mean, it's not just about not dying. That's not the goal. You look, vaccines. Even if, listen, you can catch it even if you're vaccinated. Your odds of doing so are much lowered. But the game is to prevent severe illness or long hauler COVID. Like, nobody seems to want to have that conversation. I think long hauler COVID is the next thing on the horizon. Right. Because COVID doesn't only attack your respiratory system. It attacks all of your systems. There's all kinds of neuropathy and nervous system things that we're finding out about that could you have had. Which I'm dealing, you know, I don't talk about it much, but yes. So I think people need to really re-examine what that means. Right.
And by the way, for people saying Rogan's not left, right, he's independent. That might be true, but
I think that's probably true.
But also, let's not pretend Rogan is some like little sunflower. He's getting paid $100 million by a corporation. Spotify is a
Spotify contract is $100 million.
Yes, he is making $100 million from Spotify, and Spotify is a corporation. So he's not some like indie podcaster, just having a conversation. Joe Rogan is big media, whether you agree or not. Let me read some others. President's $5. Tina, it's not that I think there's a conspiracy in science, but there have been 17,000 papers retracted in the past decade. I will send you a link.
Oh, I'm sure that's true. That's peer review in action. That doesn't change what I'm saying at all. But let me tell you this: if you're only looking at the retraction of things that you disagree or agree with, and that's a problem. Right. The consensus of science is that vaccines are sound. I don't think that's up for debate.
Right. And also, again,
go ahead and DM me on Twitter. I will totally talk to you.
But also, what I don't understand, Tina, and I genuinely don't understand this mentality. I genuinely don't understand people when I show you a clip of Joe Rogan telling people, if you're young, don't get vaccinated, he's also saying, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical person. Then I'm showing you article after article after article from the US, from the United Kingdom. Young people are filling up hospitals that are unvaccinated. Young people are in ICUs. Young people are in emergency rooms. I didn't have enough time. There is data that show a good amount of people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s have died. Not just in the US, globally. So when presented with that, I don't understand the instinctual desire to be like, well, no. Well, he's just a podcaster. Well, no, you could support him or any host for that matter, but also say, you know what? He shouldn't have said that because there wasn't enough information at that point. He shouldn't have said that because just this general principle, if you're young and healthy, you should be okay, might not apply to a deadly airborne virus.
Right.
Like I know somebody, anecdotal.
Not only airborne, but novel. I think people forget that part of the discussion. This is a new virus. This strain of coronavirus is new for human beings. So that means there is absolutely no antibodies or no way to fight it. That's why it was so scary at first and why people were very concerned about what was going to happen.
But also, Tina, I mean, this is totally anecdotal. I know somebody that I went to high school with. In high school, I think he was like, the first guy to run the mile in gym class. He ran 10 miles a day. He was a triathlon.
Super healthy then, right?
It was one of them, vegetarian or vegan. I don't know which one. But the guy was a athlete. And I lost touch with him. But I know, just seeing on Facebook, he continued to run marathons. Died in 2 weeks of COVID. So again, and I asked a mutual friend, did he have was something else going on? He said, no, guy was never sick a day in his life. So like everybody is affected by this differently. So even young, healthy people, depending on how much is in the air, what setting they get it in, who knows? But to me, it's beyond Joe Rogan. It's really disgusting that this has just become another political debate.
No, and Mitch, listen, that's what bothers me the most. This shouldn't be politicized. This is about life and death. And why is this being politicized? And it is being politicized. I go out and I cover protests and I see like Proud Boys out there with the anti-vaxxers. That's their thing now. Like, I mean, how did we get to this place? I mean,
Tina, roll for a minute. I'm going to change my shirt off camera.
Okay, roll for a minute. Oh, you're going to put your United States of Corporation new shirt on. All right. I guess what I would say about this is I'm just frustrated because I do think that the anti-vax rhetoric is getting larger. It's growing. I don't think it's solely on the right at all. There's plenty of people on the left. And in fact, I would say it started on the left. I know like here in Los Angeles, 10 years ago when you had Jenny McCarthy talking about how wrongfully talking about how she was saying vaccines was causing autism. That is profoundly not true. We know this to be not true, but it never entirely went away. And so, in the last 10 years, we've had measles making interesting comebacks in different places. And that's because of people not being vaccinated. And now when we get into this pandemic and it's COVID, we're seeing it grow even more because now it's being politicized and you have factions of folks that just simply don't trust the government making it about, freedom. And I don't think it's about freedom. I think this is about collective responsibility. Nobody's going to force you to get a vaccine, but do understand when you go out into the public, you have an obligation about how you behave because your decisions do affect others. I don't think it's too much to ask people to wear masks. Like, how is this a problem? You might save somebody else's life that's immunocompromised. Like, that's just how I think. So I don't think, oh, nice shirt, Jordan. I see it.
Not to distract.
Are you selling it on the website?
So Tina, what I'm literally going to do here is I'm literally going to just keep changing shirts because as we started this live stream, Anat, my beautiful wife, came down and showed me that the shirts I had ordered had just come in. So this is the United Corporations of America shirt. We'll have to send you one, Tina. This is available, statuscoup.com/store.
I love this. Yeah.
statuscoup.com/store. let me show you another one.
That's pretty solid. That's good because it's true. Look at and as I'm ranting about this, it sort of fits the shirt you're wearing. Like I understand why people don't trust the government. They have very valid reasons not to. We have progressed, I'd say since the early 1970s to today into a corporate oligarchy where most of Congress is bought and paid for, where only the plutonomy is really getting a say in what happens. We saw that happen in real time this week in California with our single payer bill. So, I mean, there are reasons to be angry and mistrust the government. But I would say that to this is like, don't conflate that into the science of vaccines because these things are not the one and the same. The scientists that work in medical research are, they're not subject to that stuff. They have peer review. They have consensus. It's people from different organizations, different countries. So all of that is sound, regardless of whether or not Big Pharma and the United States government is corrupt. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Okay, fossil fuckers, that's good too.
So this is the fossil fuckers. This one I really like. So this is an alternative of the United Corporations of America.
Can we send that to our governor, who is like the fracking king?
Oh, absolutely. So this is the United Corporations of America, but in the actual where the stars is supposed to be is Biden.
That's good.
Kamala, Trump, Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg.
That's good.
And then this one, this is actually might be a little narcissistic, but we'll find out. This is actually a quote that I often give. Most people are not lacking compassion in this country. Most people have no effing idea what the hell is going on. Yours truly. So, Colin, if I could trouble you to come on and tell people where to get these shirts, because the alternative United Corporations of America shirt, I believe, is only for members, right?
That is correct. Yeah, the alternative United Corporations of America you can only get if you're a member and specifically a member on the brand new web member site, since we don't have the ability to do that on the old member site. So if you're one of the people on the new member site, which if you go to statuscoup.com/join, it automatically brings you to the new site. So that's how you can know. And then if you highlight over your member section, there's the member content. And then under that, it says member store. And that's where you can find this shirt. Yeah.
So I want to address a comment. Can I? Okay, finish that. And I want to address a comment when you're done.
1 second. This one is just for members. So if you're a Status Coup member, this one is just for members. So that's statuscoupmember.com/store, right, Colin?
That's a /member store for that one. Okay. But if you're logged in and you're a member, you just highlight the member section tab at the top, and you'll see the store there to click on.
Yeah. So this one you could get anybody. So statuscoup.com/store for this one. The fossil fuckers you could get at statuscoup.com/store, and the quote shirt, the infamous quote, you could get at statuscoup.com/store. By the way, just so you know, Tina, these shirts are sustainably made.
Oh, even better.
They are from sustainable sources, so that's why if you see the price, it is higher than you would get at like your run-of-the-mill t-shirt store because they're sustainable sources. But I hope we get a flood of people buying these shirts, not just so Status Coup, we need additional revenue, but I want to see more Status Coup swag out there in the world. So I digress. Go on.
You digress. No, I just wanted to. So Presence said, Tina, are the government agencies, NIH, CDC corrupt? No, why not? Yes. Yeah, I've just said there's regulatory capture within our government agencies. I'm not denying that. What I'm saying is that doesn't make all of science corrupt and all of science unsound, because there is more than one organization fact checking each other. And I don't believe that most of the science are, okay, so are there scientists that work for certain corporations that probably do have bot science? Yes, that's true too. I think we only have to look at the tobacco, situation for decades to see that. But here's the thing, peer review and consensus are what matters. There are multiple organizations, hundreds of them, thousands of scientists that fact check each other. And that's why the system itself is sound. So all of those things get checked at some point by somebody else, and those arguments are had. So when you see retracted papers, people putting out other, responses to other papers, this is why you should trust the system, because all of that works together to keep it sound. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely.
After half a beer.
And Colin,
my beer now.
Colin, can we put the links to the StatusCoup.com, Status Coup store, and the member one in the description so people can see? So we'll put the links to both stores. The first store is for 3 of the shirts, and we'll put the link just for members for that one alternative United Corporations of America shirt. But I would love for people to start buying them so we could get not only, additional revenue for Status Coup, but, we want more swag and word of mouth going out there. Tina, let me read a couple more super chats. Some of them are addressed to you. Hold on. Boy, there's a lot of them. Oh, Steo Jeb, $4.99. Who is the arbiter of truth? Who decides how many viewers trigger CNN level production? Who gets to decide which issues require vetting? You, Stat?
No, there's objective truth in the world. I don't think CNN decides what that is. I don't think I decide what that is. And I don't think Joe Rogan decides what that is. Objective truth is verifiable by more than one person. Like, let me put it to the most super, super simplistic ideas. If I say a triangle has 3 sides, can we check that? Can we know that it's true? Can anybody anywhere else look at that and say, yeah, that's true? That is what I mean by having objective truth, right? So facts are much the same way if you look at data sets. Can you manipulate data sets with your opinions? Oh my God, yes, of course you can. And I would say some of the most educated people are probably the most adept at that. But the data sets themselves are still going to be objective truth. The problem we're getting into, I think, is that people either knowingly or unknowingly attach their opinions to that and sort of distort things in a way that's probably not good for everybody. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And Steo, I appreciate the super chat. So when you say, right, but when you say who decides which issues require vetting, you, Stat, I would genuinely, I don't mean this to be argumentative with you, Steo. I would genuinely hope that we both agree that a global pandemic that's killing millions of people, I don't care if you're CNN or Joe Rogan, is an issue that requires vetting. So when you say who decides, I would hope that a deadly pandemic, that we could agree that is an issue that requires vetting, whether it be Joe Rogan saying things, not a guest of his saying it, but him saying it, or the guests he has on. Yeah. When you say who is the arbiter of truth, who decides how many viewers trigger CNN level production, I'm not asking him to have CNN level production. What I was saying is,
I don't care about the quality of the production.
He's making $100 million. So reason would stand that if he has
producers hired, yeah,
he has said, I do the best I can. I try to research. I'm not always the best researched.
I agree. Presence.
He said, I'm not always the best researched. I would hope that if you're going to have on doctors that are pushing claims that you don't need to get vaccinated and are against vaccination, yeah, I do think that requires vetting, whether you're CNN or Joe Rogan. I do think he has the resources to hire producers and researchers that could arm him with data, counter facts, and stuff that he could push back on Dr. Robert Malone in some areas. It doesn't mean he doesn't have to have on Dr. Robert Malone. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is for him to just say, well, I don't know if what they're saying is true. It's just a conversation. Yeah, well, that's fine if you're talking about home gardening. It's not fine. It's not fine if you're talking about a global pandemic where still 2,000 to 3,000 people are dying a day globally. It's mass death. So I just disagree with you in this notion of who decides which issues require vetting. I do think if you're having, even if it's credentialed doctors, Malone's got some credentials, Peter McCullough has credentials, have them on. But that doesn't mean what they're saying doesn't require vetting just because he's a podcaster and not like a journalist.
Right.
Peter Saturday, $5. Let's see the big pharma trusted doctors debate the supposed dangerous Joe Rogan doctors like Gupta, first Malone, see if they debunk the supposed misinformation. So this is again conflation. This is again, Tina, and this stuff has been pushed by a lot of popular YouTube hosts, that if you're a doctor pro-vaccine and you're a doctor or a nurse or an expert putting out pro-vaccine information, that means you're big pharma, that means you're...
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
So I've always said, you know what is empirically true, Tina? Big pharma can't price gouge you, and big pharma can't make Dr. Evil level money if their product doesn't work. So for example,
you know what? That's a really good point, actually.
So for example, Tina, Regeneron and Eli Lilly, big pharma, they both of those companies just came out and they basically withdrew their monoclonal antibodies because they specifically were not effective for Omicron. So I'm not extolling the virtues of big pharma, but the point is they weren't working for Omicron, so they can't really make money.
Selling aspirin if aspirin didn't kill your headache. I mean,
right. So they can't price gouge you. They can't, I'm not defending them because what these companies do is evil in my view, but the product has to work.
That's right. I mean, insulin is, I think, a perfect example of this. Insulin is something that is life and death for a whole group of people, right? They need their insulin to survive. The pharmaceutical companies are absolutely price gouging the crap out of that right now, and it's disgusting. So that is a prime example. People need insulin. It keeps them alive. Does the price gouging that the pharmaceutical companies engage in regards to it make the insulin bad? No, it does not. Insulin still is going to save lives. Also, I did want to go back and address something Presence said to me about data sets, and I agree with you. The data sets, the way these things are structured, is really important. And oftentimes in fact, that's what took Dr. Wakefield down. Is it Wakefield? I think the guy in Britain that was saying that autism was linked to vaccines. So that is what matters, and it's why peer review works, because if the data sets are not, or even the study itself is not set up properly, it's going to be destroyed in peer review. So hopefully that clarifies what my point is.
Absolutely. But again, like, I get what you're saying, who decides, but some things are just factual. So again, I've repeatedly said it over and over. Rogan told, not like as a layman, he emphatically said, no. If I'm asked if a young person should get vaccinated, no. Are you healthy? So that's not like him just as a layman being like, if it were up to me, no. He was emphatically telling 11 million people listening, if you're young, don't bother. You don't need to do it. Okay? So, yeah, that should be vetted. He shouldn't just carelessly say those things.
Now, hang on. I got to stop you. Somebody just said in the chat, we don't all need insulin. We don't all need flu or COVID vaccines. Stop. Just stop. No, of course we don't need insulin unless you're a diabetic, but all diabetics need insulin. Everybody is susceptible to COVID. Everybody. You can get it. You can be affected by it. You can get severe disease. You can die from it. That affects everybody in the same way that all diabetics need insulin. This is a bad comparison.
Right.
Sorry, I had to say that.
I want to read one more comment, and then we'll read more super chats.
Okay.
Colin, page 2. This is from Forge West. Love that name. Jordan, I'm a member, and you do great work on the ground, and I'm going to keep supporting you. Why, thank you. But every once in a while, you take up some shit-lib position, and I don't get it. This must be, is that a Jimmy Dore viewer? Because Jimmy loves the shit-lib. So the quote, fringe needs a voice, unless it's the wrong fringe. You provide a voice to the voiceless. You didn't have a problem when he talks about eating meat, even though the science is against it. It probably kills more people through cancer, heart attack, diabetes, etc. But now that he gives a voice to people that push back on big pharma and government intimidation, you want it tempered in some way to suit your view. Clean it up. I don't know what videos of mine you're watching. So first of all, I've said my bigger issue is not that he's having these people on. It's that he generally does not push back on anything, and that he has said himself, he doesn't have any ability to know with what they're saying is true or not. So again, I haven't said don't have Dr. Malone on, don't have McCullough on. I wouldn't, but
I wouldn't either.
It's his show. He could do it if he wants. But what I have been saying is, but now that he gives a voice to people that push back on big pharma and government intimidation, no, Dr. Robert Malone, this is the conflation.
Yeah.
They're selling themselves as we're pushing back on big pharma. What they're actually doing is giving medical advice for people not to get vaccinated, when the overwhelming preponderance of data is vaccines are saving lives. It is saving people from dying. At this point, it's not saving you from getting COVID like it did in the original with the Alpha variant and this and that, or the Delta variant. There was less breakthrough infections. But this whole conflation that just because some people that have credentials are going on there ranting against big pharma, that means what they're saying is true. People are conflating that.
They are.
You could be against big pharma while also believing data, while also believing science, while also believing the preponderance of data. It doesn't mean you're a big pharma shill if you believe data.
Also, not on top of that, what really kind of blows my mind is how the folks making the argument you just stated also ignore the fact that some of the things that they're pushing in the alternative medicine sphere are also funded by big pharma and makes big pharma money. And what about the fact, and this isn't up for debate, folks, what about the dark money? What about the dark money that is going to some of these doctors? Because they are getting a lot of pharmaceutical money from that's been shown. And it's not just Koch brothers, it's also pharmaceutical companies, or also in independent media, also not up for debate. I mean, we all know that this is true. So why is it only bad for dark money to come in if it's somebody you disagree with? If you are against big pharma corruption, if you're against MSC corruption because they're taking corporate money, also be against these other things because it's not mutually exclusive.
Right. And I also, again, and frankly, let's just call it what it is. Jimmy has pushed this a lot, that you're somehow parroting big pharma or establishment talking points. If you point out that the vaccine is saving lives, if you point out, he's been pushing this. Oh, you're big pharma, you're pro-establishment. No, big pharma. If Jimmy really wants to, if Jimmy or Rogan or these other people want to really go after big pharma, you know what we do? We start demanding their
patents. End of story.
Right. The real sin of this is that big pharma is withholding patents. They're withholding the formula for these vaccines with the third world. People say, oh, no, the third world doesn't want it. Oh, yeah? Well,
yes, they do.
That's contrary to what the third world is saying. And there are literally manufacturing hubs and factories in these third world countries where there are scientists and doctors at the ready and researchers at the ready to replicate Moderna, Pfizer's formula, but they don't have the formula. So if you really want to take on big pharma,
do something about that.
How about you take on the fact that Biden has the power right now? The government has the power right now. Ralph Nader explained it. The government, in times of emergency, I say this is an emergency, Tina, to seize the patent, to seize a private corporation's patent, which, by the way, it basically is the government's patent because the government helped fund the research that led to this. So I just completely reject this. It's frankly, it's manipulation where people are manipulating and trying to fool people into thinking, no, if you are putting out information and data about vaccines actually being safe, vaccines actually saving lives, you're with big pharma. That's bullshit. That's complete bullshit. And you're being fooled and manipulated. Let me keep going. I know you got it. I got to read some more.
All right. I still have half a beer here, so I better have
I got a quarter, so.
I better catch up.
Drew Stanko, $1. Thank you, Drew Stanko. Denise, $4.99. It was medical grade, but I couldn't send the super chat with Ivor in it. Oh, so Denise is the one where her husband was taking ivermectin. He was taking the medical grade.
Well, at least there's that. Thank God.
Yeah. So Denise, 1999, Medicare for all would really help because then people would have relationships with doctors, nurse practitioners, and could go directly to them and discuss the vaccine. Completely agree with you. Completely
100%
agree.
agree with you. That is also part of the problem.
Absolutely.
I think most of the people that are kind of falling into this trap, and I know they don't want me to qualify that way, but I don't think they're doing it with intention or maliciously or any of those things. I just think we're in this environment that is sort of conducive to these problems, and I don't know what you do to correct it.
Right. Absolutely. And by the way, again, Tina, you know this. I probably at this point, what do we got? 300 watching? I probably have 700 to 1,000 watching. If I put in the headline, the real reason they want to stop Joe Rogan, or I did something much more pro Joe Rogan, right?
Yeah. Why? Okay. So why is that? Is it because YouTube would promote it more, or is it because people are more wanting to hear sort of this toxic argumentation stuff versus actual? I mean, this is a serious question I'm asking because I wonder why the environment. Like, there's now YouTube shows that are about other YouTube shows, and it's just this hamster wheel that to me is just toxic nonsense.
YouTube's algorithm actually is intentionally elevating reactionary content.
Oh yeah. By the way, the District 34 channel, we got dinged yesterday for reporting on hate speech. So they called my reporting on hate speech hate speech.
There you go. Well, that's the same thing as YouTube literally took down our January 6th footage saying we were advancing false claims. Not that we were covering.
How do they not understand this nuance? I mean, are we supposed to ignore all of these things in the world and hope they go away?
They understand it. They understand it. They're just trying to demolish and remove independent media. That's really what it comes down to. Let me get through this. Levon Huey, a YouTube member. Joe Rogan is an entertainer. We shouldn't have to tell adults not to take medical advice from entertainers or anyone without a medical background. Levon, I get what you're saying.
We have to, apparently.
I get what you're saying, Levon, but I'm sorry. If you're an entertainer, then you should not be making declarative statements like, if you're a young, healthy person, no, you shouldn't get vaccinated. You can't have it both ways. So when people say he's just an entertainer, he's just a podcaster, he's just having kind of a stream of consciousness, casual conversation, many of them I actually enjoy. Again, I've listened to some of his stuff and I've enjoyed some of his stuff, but you can't have it both ways. So do you think George Carlin would be hosting COVID discussions and telling people whether to get vaccinated or not?
Probably not.
He wouldn't. So again, he could be an entertainer, but he's an entertainer with 11 million viewers. So as an entertainer, if that's it, I would love him. If he wants to cover COVID, so be it. I would love him to say, I'm not educated enough to give you declarative advice. I don't know enough about this to know whether the guests I'm having on are telling the truth or not. Mm-hmm. That is important because people trust him. That's the thing. It would be great, Levon, if we lived in a world where people watch for entertainment, but the other part of their brain said, "Oh, I'm not actually going to take anything away from this in terms of vaccines or whether I get vaccinated or whatever the case may be." That's not how our media environment works, and it's not how listeners and viewer works. On the left, on the right, in between, people consume media and are influenced by that media, whether they're entertainers or not.
Fair.
Remember,
somebody just said you're making declarations right now. Yes, it's okay to make declarations as long as they're grounded in truth. I mean, that's the point. That's the point Jordan's making. Every day we make declarations, right? The question is that grounded in something that is truthful, or have we just decided that this is pleasing, so I'm going to say it?
Well,
that's
the declaration I have made is that Joe Rogan recklessly told his viewers.
But he has. Somebody's now saying Joe Rogan hasn't declared anything. Do we need to play that video again? He has actually.
What do you? He literally said, if somebody asks me, he's not having a conversation with one person. He's having a conversation in front of 11 million people. So if somebody asks me, if you're young and 21, young, healthy person to get vaccinated. Again, no. Are you healthy? Like, what are these games you're playing? These people saying, oh, no, he's just a layman. He's not telling people what to do. Nobody actually listens to him. Give me a fucking break with this bullshit. Seriously.
Yeah, listen,
Colin,
truth is
Colin,
objective and verifiable. If truth isn't objective and verifiable, then there's no such thing as truth.
Colin,
what you're talking
one more
about
time.
is opinion.
One more
Say,
time.
do you think it's safe to get vaccinated? I've said, yeah, I think for the most part it's safe to get vaccinated. I do. I do. But if you're like 21 years old and you say to me, should I get vaccinated? I go, no. Yeah. Are you healthy? Are you a healthy person?
So again, you could have opinions about a lot of things.
Yeah.
You're giving an opinion to 11 million people about a deadly pandemic. This is what I think you're missing. This is not just some topic. This is not just some political debate. He's declaratively telling people, and we already established, I already said, yeah, unfortunately, people do actually take what he's saying and it influences the way they think and what they do. Not just him, a whole lot of other people.
Oh yeah, no, this is definitely a global problem that we're experiencing. And, we were talking about this earlier. What do we do about it? Bring back the fairness doctrine, I don't know how you get back some sort of commitment to veracity, but it's problematic because a lot of people don't know how to discern truth from non-truth.
Right.
And why would we expect them to, right? I mean, this is, I don't think it's intentionally malicious, but it is malicious eventually.
But again, I think people need to understand he could be giving an opinion, but he's giving that opinion based on ignorance. He doesn't have any expertise to give that opinion. So you devil's advocates might say, oh, so Jordan, only doctors should be able to say anything about COVID? No, but if you have no medical, epidemiological, scientific, if you don't even know how to read a study, if you don't know the complexities of studies, if you don't know anything about peer-reviewed studies, if you don't know anything about the importance of, how many people are in the study, if you don't know about abnormalities in a study, if you don't know enough, it's not his fault he doesn't know enough. He's not a doctor. If you don't know enough, when you're giving these opinions, you have to understand you have a massive megaphone. So it's not like just, oh, you're giving the opinions and people just listen to it and then they go about their day. People trust you. People are influenced by what you're saying. And this isn't just Joe Rogan. I said this at the beginning of the live stream. I've been traveling for 6 years. I've interviewed thousands of people, politics, activism, Flint, many places. I've interviewed right-wingers, left-wingers, neoliberal, conservative, libertarian, young people, stupid people, a lot of people. 7 out of 10 people I interview just in politics, what they feed back to you, it's very clear. What's rolling off the tongue is coming from Rush Limbaugh. He's no longer with us. Fox News, Jack Probisak, Alex Jones, Glenn Beck, Rachel Maddow, Wolf, on the more liberal, neoliberal stuff, their opinions a lot of times, most of the times, are being formed by the media they're consuming. So that's why, at least on COVID, Tina, it's not just some topic that, hey, everybody's got an opinion about. No, you have to actually take care for what you're saying when you're talking about a life or death thing. That's the thing here. And no, you're not excused from that just because you're a podcaster.
No.
So
I agree with that.
Observer, $5. It's also nice not to clog up the ER with COVID cases in case anyone needs help in a car accident.
That's a problem too. No, it's a huge problem actually. And in fact, a lot of why they were concerned with mitigating a lot of the risk was because of that reason. There's only so many ICU beds you have available in each city. And when all of those ICU beds are taken up with folks with COVID problems, there's no room for the people in car accidents, the heart attacks, appendicitis, other things that might need acute care. So it is definitely part of the conversation.
Right. Tina, I've been rude. There are a couple more super chats, but do you want to read one of your hater comments? Because I don't want you to. I sent you guys a bunch. I don't know, but they're not about COVID. Do we want to get into other just general hate comments? Well, we don't have 3 more hours, so let me Yeah, read one. Why not?
Okay, so Colin, what do you got in the folder there that I sent you? There's this one. Okay, so there's this one troll account on Twitter that I know is somebody's alt. I don't know whose it is. I never respond to it, but they're constantly just trolling me with like crazy nonsense. I sent Colin a bunch of those. Colin, you there?
Yeah, they're on the PDF, so just let me know which page and I'll pull it up.
I have no idea what page they are on the PDF.
Just
yeah, okay.
You could just say the Twitter account or whatever. He'll find it.
Let me look at it for a second. Look at the folder, but because there's a bunch from the same guy, you'll see them. He like goes on and on about my makeup and I should marry Chad Loader, like, which is super hilarious. I mean, just do you know which one? Do you see which account I'm talking about? It's just funny stuff because you read this and you're like, okay.
Why is he talking about your makeup? That's ridiculous.
I don't know. I don't know because I don't know. He's a weirdo. That's why.
Right.
Hang on. My hater folder.
Colin, let me know if you find it.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, you see? Okay.
It's on the screen, Tina.
Hang on. Yeah, that guy. Also, I was really excited to realize that he does not know what kind of car I have because that's not my car.
So this guy's saying that's too far for her. I have her address. Well, that's comforting.
Yeah, I don't know if they actually, again, they might. I did get that note on my car one day when I was covering that Trump protest. So it's possible, but I definitely do not have a blue hatchback Scion. So that's thankful. But yeah, this Carl guy, like there's a bunch in there, but he just keeps trolling me with crazy stuff.
You get a lot of trolls from what I've seen.
I get a lot of, yeah, I just picked this guy out this morning when you asked me. I'm like, oh, do I get Twitter hate? Boy, do I get Twitter hate.
So the next one we do, we'll have to really focus on your hate because
So the funny thing, this one, so Sky Spider is the old lady and Tina is the younger one that wears too much makeup online, only online apparently. And I don't even wear that much makeup, period. But I'm the same age as the person that he's talking about. So I was like,
it's crazy. I want to, if you'll allow me, I just want to rip through the rest of these because we have a bunch of them. Michael Williams, $20. Why, thank you, Michael. Jordan, it sounds like Rogan was expressing an opinion. He can't express an opinion because he has a very loud voice because people you judge as stupid might hear it. That lowers public speech down to the dumbest person in society. No, I just addressed this. You have to recognize that everybody could have an opinion, but when you're talking about certain topics that literally
there's a responsibility for that.
What you say can affect whether somebody lives or dies. That's not dramatic. Right. What Joe Rogan says, what other people say that either are straight up telling you not to get vaccinated or vaccine hesitant, which is basically whatever. It's basically anti-vaxxer, only wink, wink. I'm vaccine hesitant.
Yeah.
Not all opinions are created equally. I'm not putting duct tape over Joe Rogan's mouth. He has a right to say whatever he wants. What I'm saying is you should be more responsible with what things you're even discussing. So for me, I had an epidemiologist on about COVID because I don't know enough. So I wanted to have an epidemiologist on that I respect and that I talked to off camera before I had him on. And I thought I became more educated from him. So I thought he could become more educated. The audience could become more educated from him. And also, if he was spewing to me, I don't think anyone under 65 needs to get vaccinated or the Great Barrington Theory. You know what? I wouldn't have had him on.
I would have pushed back when he said that. I've been like, wait a second.
Right. I wouldn't have had him on because, like, I have done the research to see that the preponderance of data shows that the majority of people dying from this are unvaccinated.
Yeah, that's not up for debate.
So the point is, when you say it sounds like he was just expressing an opinion, again, he's not just expressing an opinion on which person's going to win the UFC fight. He's expressing an opinion about life or death things. That is the difference. And and you're not excused from responsibility just because you're a podcaster or just because you're an entertainer. I appreciate the super chat, but that's where we disagree. It's not, again, I believe in freedom of speech. I don't believe freedom from responsibility. You should take responsibility, and you should care with whether the things you're saying are true. And you know what? At some points, you might not know. You might kind of have questions about whether young people should they not. And that's fair to say. He could have just said, honestly, I just don't know enough about it. The way I live my life is eating healthy, working out, just being healthy. And generally that working out, being healthy generally makes you less susceptible to illness, things like that. But I don't know if that crosses over to making you less susceptible to coronavirus. So in general, I think being young and healthy is good, but I don't know enough whether to tell you whether to get vaccinated or not. That would have been, again, I can't tell him what to say, but that would have been him being honest. I don't know enough. And that's what he said. By the way, that's what he said in the Instagram video, Tina. So now he's saying, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical person. You can't have it both ways.
Well, he switched gears now. But I would also say, even if you are young and in your 20s and less susceptible to disease, what about your obligation to the folks that can't get vaccinated or those that are older? Your decision has consequences for other people because this is a contagious disease, right? What you do affects the people around you. That's not up for debate. So I don't understand why people can be so self-absorbed. Like, I take into consideration when I go out into the grocery store, even though I'm vaccinated and boosted, I wear a mask. Does it feel uncomfortable sometimes? Of course it does, but that's not the point. The point is that I do care about how my decisions affect other people around me. I feel that there is a collective responsibility to others. We're not isolated, and it's not all about me.
Right. And it's also, again, it just comes down to this word opinion. Nobody's saying he can't have an opinion. What we're trying to get across is your opinion is being heard by 11 million people.
Yeah.
So if you're saying, I don't know whether the people I'm having on are saying what they're saying is true. Right. By that standard, if you're saying I'm not a doctor or a medical person, this and that, then how can you know definitively that what you're advising people is true? Because these people, by the way, were saying, Jordan, he just gave an opinion. No, he said definitively, if a young 21-year-old asked me if they should get vaccinated, no, that's not like equivocating. He declared it. And by the way, it wasn't once that he said that. He said it repeatedly, telling young people not to get vaccinated. Let's rip through some more. Carpe diem, $5. Call Joe Manchin by his name, Joe Maserati. That we could agree. That we could agree on. MHC.
That's a good one.
MHC tip $2. Maybe we shouldn't have been surprised by the politicization of mass vaccines, etc. After all, even solely within the confines of the left, we've seen the same thing around the idea of taking adequate and expedient action on climate change. That's true.
That's very true. Absolutely agree with that.
Presence.
It's not just anti-vaccination science that's under attack. It's climate change science and a whole host of other things.
Right. Presence, $10. I really appreciate the discussion, folks. You two are great. Why, thank you. Appreciate it. Roger Meadows, tip $2. Corporate news, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, ABC, Washington Post, New York Times, have all been proven to be the biggest purveyors of misinformation, disinformation. Way before Rogan came along, they all are accusing him of the same thing they have been guilty of. They lied about climate.
Parties are wrong.
They lied about climate change, going into Vietnam, UFOs, Iraq, Libya, staying in Afghanistan for the women and children, mass actually working, Bernie and his policies like Medicare for all. So yeah, you're right. But what does that have to? What is again this?
Rogan right?
Right, but again, this is the thing that I'm not criticizing you. I just don't get that.
Yeah,
when people pivot to, but what about them? Well, is the standard that we can't criticize misinformation, period, wherever it comes from, whether it's from CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times? Literally, if you watch this channel, 60-70% of what I do is calling out corporate media.
But here's the thing: not everybody's wrong about everything all the time, and not everybody's right about everything all the time. there's nuance in there. I mean, there's plenty of things that Joe Rogan has said that are 100% correct.
Right. But there's also like this reflex now from people there's this reflex from people that don't want to address the merits of whether Rogan in particular has pushed out misinformation to point out CNN. And it's like, I don't understand that. Like, yeah, we all criticize these outlets. So does that mean we shouldn't criticize Joe Rogan if he gets something wrong, or he's a little too casual in telling people, yeah, you don't have to get vaccinated? And by the way, let's not forget, Joe Rogan told people, yeah, young people, you don't need to get vaccinated. If you're young and healthy, then why did Joe Rogan feel the need to take ivermectin, prednisone, monoclonal antibodies? Why did he have to throw the kitchen sink at it if just being healthy, because he lives a healthy lifestyle? Why did he have to throw the kitchen sink at it if just being healthy would have protected you from COVID? Why?
Not because being healthy isn't enough to protect you against COVID or many other viruses for that matter.
And by the way, maybe he didn't realize monoclonal antibodies, unless you're hospitalized already with COVID, you're talking thousands of dollars for monoclonal antibodies.
Expensive. Yeah,
you're talking
the big pharmaceutical companies charge a lot of money for them.
So that kitchen sink that he threw at COVID for him
was big pharma.
I don't know why he needed the kitchen sink if he said just being healthy is fine. Most people can't afford the cocktails that he had.
Absolutely not.
But Roger,
even if you have really good insurance, that your side of the hospital bill on that's going to be quite expensive.
And Roger, you're not wrong about these other outlets.
No,
I mean, you're not.
I
just broke a Flint story, another major Flint story, and one of the biggest sins is the mainstream media has been lying that Flint's fine and the water's fine. So I'm with you out of all these other outlets, and to me, they have done combined such damage. I mean, wars, Russiagate, all this shit. But that doesn't mean you can't look at the specific things that Joe Rogan has said, the things his guests have said, and critique Joe Rogan. So two things could be true. I know nuance is hard for people to take these days. Roger, $2 tip. The wealthy in Wall Street fleecing us. Christine Todd Whitman lying about the air around Ground Zero, and it's safe to go there. The Tuskegee experiments, all that. They are just upset that they are no longer the gatekeepers. Again, we just went through this. Yes, 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 yes.
Oh,
what is that?
Yeah.
What does that have to do with Joe Rogan?
I don't think this is a question about gatekeeping at all. It's a question about whether or not you have a commitment to veracity. And that occurs on every level, whether it's your independent media, whether you're the MSM, whether you're in government, whether you're not in government. These things aren't mutually exclusive. The problem is we're now in an environment where people are literally playing team sports instead of looking at what is truth. And that's the problem, in my opinion.
And also, again, and I've seen this from channels that I like. And frankly, I think they're doing
some people are listening to this and like maybe thinking about it instead of yelling. I'm going to get into Twitter. I'll be yelled at for this stuff. But I think this is really important discussions. And I do have deep concern for the fact that this is happening in our society where people are like, but he's my guy, so he can't be wrong about anything. Well, no, that's not true. We're all wrong at some point about something.
But also,
all right, carry on.
But also, Tina, at the end of the day, this I've seen it from channels I respect. They won't criticize Joe Rogan. You want to know? It's pretty clear. It's pretty clear why. It's pretty clear why. They don't want to lose audience. A lot of their audience likes Joe Rogan.
This is not how I gauge what I say and do. Right. At some point, we have to have a bigger responsibility to the universe. And I think the bigger responsibility is being very concerned about what you're putting out in the world and making sure that it is, truthful in some aspect. And that seems to have gone away. People just want clicks and they'll say what they need to say to get clicks. I just can't do that.
And the other thing also is I've seen from other channels where they make it seem like the only issue with Rogan is that he had two guests on, Robert Malone and Peter McCullough, and they conveniently left out he was telling people not to get vaccinated. He was pushing ivermectin and all these things. It's not only about the guests he has had. It's also about the things he is saying that are not backed up by data, science, or anything. Let me rip through more of these. Carpe Diem, $5. Hardly anybody is discussing Mansions, yacht, and Maserati. I can't even find how many. I can't even find how many houses Joe Maserati owns. I'll discuss it more for you. Robert, another $2. Try to go after the under 41 crowd by invading YouTube. So if we're going to censor, let's start with them first. Also, JC, I would love to see nothing more than you take a trip to Libby, Montana to see how they like their Medicare for all. This could prove as their testing ground. That's a great idea, Robert.
That is a great idea.
Excuse me. That's a great idea, Roger. It's a great idea.
And in fact, like the doctor that I spoke to this week was, he's actually a conservative from Utah, and he's advocating for single payer, which is why I wanted to talk with him. And he was making the conservative case as to why Medicare for all is the way to go. And part of his argument was basically saying a lot of these rural communities do support the idea and that they're just not being given a voice to. So it's kind of interesting to me that there is a consensus that has been built here, and it's good because this should not be politicized. That
Libby, Montana is a brilliant idea, and I've always wanted to go to Montana so I could kill two birds.
I've been to Butte.
Yeah, I've never been. I'm gonna think about that after this.
It's a beautiful state. It's kind of crazy to get there. You have to get on one of these really small, scary planes, though.
Got it. MHC, $2 tip. Once they get infected with COVID-19, people who are anti-vaccine seem to suddenly forget that they are opposed to big pharma as they flee to the nearest emergency room, which have big pharma products everywhere.
That's right.
Thank you.
You're 100% correct. I brought that up more than once. I don't understand why people don't realize that. And in fact, big pharma is going to make more money off of you when you get sick from COVID and you have to take all of their drugs versus getting the free vaccine.
And this again, Tina, we've talked about this.
They are making money off of the vaccine, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying there's definitely a trade-off there.
But Tina, we've talked about this. And again, I don't understand why people don't get this. And that's why conflating these two things is just disingenuous. Big pharma is evil. That has nothing to do with the products that they make.
That's so. Right.
For the most part, the products that they make,
exactly.
For the most part, the products that they're making, whether it's COVID or other things, work.
That's right.
So
do not take away my ibuprofen when I have a headache.
Right. So the point is, let's not be anti-science and say up is down, the sky is green.
You're not owning anybody by being anti-science.
Right. So you could be against big pharma and we could demand and fight for Medicare for all, which I certainly want to keep seeing. I think the Squad, Bernie, haven't done enough in the recent year under Biden. And you could be against big pharma and the for-profit healthcare system,
right,
while also saying, yeah, the data clearly shows that the vaccines are saving lives. That, by the way, this mild Omicron, it was mostly mild because people were vaccinated. And people were boosted. It was mostly mild for those people. For unvaccinated people, it was a whole lot more overwhelmingly hospital.
We've been having minor 9/11 death rates for a couple of weeks now, and that has not gotten much media attention, in my opinion.
So
I don't know, do people see that? I mean, it's 3,000 deaths a day.
Right. You and I were live one day, and the day before was nearly 4,000. It wasn't even on. Wasn't even on the news that 4,000 people had died. But the point is, people need to stop conflating big pharma being evil and corrupt and our government being bought off by big pharma. That's separate from, well, because big pharma is making the vaccines, I don't trust it. Because, okay, so would you not take insulin if you're a diabetic because big pharma is price gouging insulin? It just doesn't make any sense. Like, look at the actual medicine and whether it is saving lives and the data. Look on that on its own. You could go after big pharma for the fact that they are choosing greed and profit over saving lives. It's a separate thing. Rick, $5. Rogan is effectively pushing his beliefs and agenda when he brings on guests who are mostly anti-COVID. He never challenged them on fact science. Correct.
Also, let me ask you this. Has he had any pro-vaccine scientists on to talk to? Has he done that?
He had Dr. Sanjay Gupta on.
Okay.
But I didn't, to be fair, I didn't listen to the whole thing. The parts that I saw.
That's what I'm asking. I'm just curious is whether he's giving equal airtime to both sides.
No, but again, Rogan, and this goes to show more about he's not he's not capable of knowing these facts. Rogan, again, he was fact checked in real time by a journalist who was on with him, an Australian journalist, because Rogan was saying there's a greater risk of myocarditis to people who get vaccinated.
No, that's absolutely not true.
And the journalist started spitting out facts
Right.
that actually no, it's you have a greater risk of I think it was 8 times greater risk of myocarditis from actually.
It is 8 times greater. Listen, most side effects from vaccines are the milder version of what's going to happen to you if you actually get the disease. Not always 100%, but a lot of them are. So
right.
If you're so frustrated, get vaccinated.
But again, I'm not like when Rogan was basically corrected by that guest, great. But again, he kind of fought it. And he's like, but where are you getting that from? This, that, or the other thing. That's the thing. That's the rare exception. That's the rare exception when a guest corrects him. Most of the time, he has people on that are spewing the stuff that's not true. And there is no like, I'm not asking for the what.
He has people on that he doesn't know how to fact check. And in this particular situation, it was the reverse.
Right.
I mean, listen, I talk to epidemiologists. I don't always know what they're talking about. I ask them questions. But I would not give a microphone to somebody that I hadn't already pre-vetted as being somebody that was well-respected, well peer-reviewed, well under. You know what I'm saying? There's certain parameters to that.
Right. And at the end of the day, I go back to what Crystal Ball said. She said, I wouldn't have Dr. Robert Malone on because I think he's been irresponsible, but also I don't know enough to go toe to toe with him. It's okay to simply say, I'm not educated. Like, for example, Russia, Ukraine, right? I'm a domestic guy. I don't really know foreign stuff. I have a hard enough time keeping up with domestic stories and covering stories in America that other people aren't covered, to then get well-versed on the history of Ukraine and Russia and this, that, and the other thing. So when I talk about it, right off the top, I say, I don't really know enough. And I generally have a guest on who might know more than I.
Right.
Or I try to bring on somebody who knows foreign policy because I don't know enough. And I say it at the top, I don't know enough. And if the guest says something that I don't know if what they're saying is true, I would push back. Or I would say, I don't really know, to be clear, I don't know if everything you're saying is true, but, blah, 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 blah. So that's the difference. Like, it's okay to say, in general, I think if you're a young, healthy person, I think you should be okay with most things. But as far as COVID-19, I'm not equipped to tell you whether just being young and healthy means you don't need to get vaccinated. That's what I would hope where he shifts to, because these things do matter. What you say does matter. You could have freedom of speech. You and I have both said we don't think it should be taken down or deplatformed or whatever.
No, not at all, yeah.
That doesn't mean you can't be more responsible with the things you're saying. And if you're going to have guests on that are controversial, you certainly have the money to hire a team to fact check what they're saying. Yeah. Because some of the things they're saying might have some validity. And then some of the things they're saying might be completely batshit and totally counter. So it's not all or nothing. Some of the things might be true. Some of the things might not. Tina, I have to pee. We need to get through all these. So let me just rip through these. Melissa, $2. Please, people don't understand the scientific process. That's true.
Agree.
Aki Woman, $4.99. Why, thank you. Kate, $5 tip. The government failed on so many levels. No metric for opening and closing schools, businesses, etc. No organized campaign to inform the public about what they can do to be healthier. No deployment of the Defense Production Act. Biden saying there is no national response. I think that's what turns people away from believing anything the authorities say when it's obvious.
Yeah.
When it is obvious the government is for sale.
Yep.
I agree with that to a certain extent, because I can tell you, having covered the 2020 campaign, it's not just that the government didn't have a plan or that the government didn't have a national response, this and that. A big part of it was, at the time, the president, Trump, was basically poo-pooing masks, comparing this to the cold, and playing make-believe, like, let's open things back up, everything's fine, this and that. And on the other end, Biden, although he's taking it a little bit more seriously,
barely.
Basically said, without, not saying, well, the facts on the ground will determine policy, have said, no, we're not closing things down. We're keeping schools open. Everything's back to normal, blah, 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 blah. And that's kind of hard when you get fixed in that position, because frankly, with Omicron spreading and this and that, he could have just said, we're going back to, you're going to get a $2,000 check this month.
Right.
Payrolls are going to be.
Wait till the surge is gone. Listen, I don't think either administration handled this properly or well. And I think both of them did so because of economic reasons. Absolutely.
Chris, $5. Rogan saying to just die if you're not fit and healthy is eugenics on immunocompromised, including me. Why are progressives excusing eugenics? I don't know. I don't know if he's ever explicitly said.
I don't think he's thought deeply enough into it, but there is a form of that going on, and it's also going on with the government, with both administrations. They don't seem to care about how other people's decisions affect their outcomes. So when people say let it rip, it's fine if you're vaccinated. The people that are going to die are going to be the immunocompromised, or they're going to be the older people, and that's just the way it goes because we can't keep the government shut down. We need to keep the economy going. So if we lose these people in the process, that's fine. I do think that is a form of laissez-faire eugenics. I do.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Web Angel, I don't know what currency this is. It says 200, but I can't tell what's next to it. Your mods are muting people who push back. Not good. Listen, I'm trying to keep up.
The only things I've seen silent automatically are cuss words, and that's on also with people that agree with us.
Yeah. And by the way, just so you know, YouTube wise, you could be penalized on YouTube if you allow certain things in chat. So YouTube comes down on you as a channel if you allow certain.
I've seen them mute comments or mute individuals that I didn't mute. They're already muted on the channel. You're like, okay, I didn't do that, but whatever. So
I can't follow what moderators are doing while I'm live, but generally the moderators on the channel push back if something's racist, anti-Semitic, or people are just pushing complete bullshit. So if there's a specific thing that you're saying is wrongly being pushed back on, feel free to email me, info@statuscoup.com. Web Angel, another currency I can't tell, but it says 200. Being asymptomatic doesn't stop spreading equals fact. Yeah, true.
Great.
But there is data to show that if you are double vax with a booster, so basically 3 shots, although you could still get it, you are at less risk of contracting.
That's right. You're at less risk of contracting, but you know who's at the greater risk of contracting? And this is what gets lost in the discussion. The unvaccinated individual is at greater risk. And I don't understand why people want to turn that conversation around and make it about the vaccinated person who did the right thing. I've seen this happen more than once. Like if you're vaccinated and you're asymptomatic, you can still spread it. Okay, yes, but that's why you should get vaccinated.
But also, there is data that shows that if you're vaccinated, you are still at less risk of contracting it.
Yes, it's much less.
Not 100%. Like obviously, there's a ton of breakthrough infections, but you are still at lesser risk of getting 100%. It. And you also shed the virus for a smaller duration of time if you are vaccinated. So again, still, it is a fact. If you are unvaccinated, you are at greater chance of getting it. Yeah. Obviously, if you're at greater chance of getting it, you're at greater chance of spreading it. And the unvaccinated shed the virus for a longer period of time than the unvaccinated. That there is a lot of data to show that.
Oh, no, you're 100% right. It's about, so people need to understand this. Nothing is 100% efficacious. Nothing. So when we have these conversations, it's about best outcomes, what's more likely, what's less likely. It's probabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. Misinfotainment, $5. Meanwhile, action on climate change isn't being spoken about.
Yes, I know. Yeah, you know what? This is very frustrating for me too. I'm now noticing that the 24-hour, at least YouTube news cycle is about this stuff that we're talking about today, and all these other things are getting sidelined. I now see entire YouTube channels that all they want to do is put out anti-vaccine information or just COVID stuff, and this is really unfortunate.
It's very lucrative for them. Those channels are growing.
That's right. They're growing, but they're also getting money to do this.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
No, it's a problem, and I agree with you.
Right. And by the way, the person that just said now you're putting out misinformation, look it up. If you are vaccinated, if you are vaccinated, you are still less likely to contract coronavirus. Not completely, you won't get it. You could still get it, but you are less likely to get it. If you do get it,
you're less likely to have severe disease. And
you also shed the virus, meaning there's less of a duration for you to shed it. This is empirically true.
It's empirically true. It's sound science. And this is because you've built up antibodies through the vaccination process. This is, you guys, come on now. This is not misinformation. That is absolutely scientifically sound and true.
But again, people are like stuck in whatever they have been told by certain channels and wherever they have read. That, I mean, I'm literally looking at epidemiologists putting out peer-reviewed studies showing the data, showing that even with Omicron, even though there was a lot of breakthrough infections, it was still, you had less of a chance of getting Omicron if you were vaccinated.
Best outcomes. What are the best outcomes? That is what we're trying to accomplish here. Nothing's 100%. And then let me bring up this other thing. I see these guys now bringing up herd immunity, and I don't think they quite understand what that means. We didn't get to herd immunity with polio or smallpox until everybody was vaccinated. You're not going to get to herd immunity without vaccination at a high rate. Simple.
Absolutely. And by the way, welcome new Status Coup member just signed up. Leanne just signed up. Woohoo! Be like Leanne. Sign up. StatusCoup.com/join. StatusCoup.com/join. Become a member. $5 a month, 16 cents a day. Your membership helps support on-the-ground reporting and investigative reporting. My goal is to get back out there in the next few weeks. So StatusCoup.com/join. Sign up as a member. $5 a month. The last one I'll read before we bid adieu. Roger, another tip. Holy cow. $2. Okay, all those chats I sent that were meant to be read in unison was meant to be one huge chat, not each separate. Well, it comes in separate.
Apparently,
It comes in separately. Sorry, Roger. And just hold on. But they wasn't meant as an attack on you guys. I know where you stand. I have no problem with you critiquing Joe. I don't even watch his show. But it was an attack on corporate media who has no standing in criticizing him. He's their new Trump ratings draw. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
And I also, by the way, I don't think CNN and them are just criticizing him for journalistic virtue. I think they see, oh, wow. I think they have a jealousy, too, that he's got 11 million listeners.
Probably, yeah.
And if they could criticize him and damage him and somehow make him persona non grata, maybe in their mind, he'll lose viewers and be less of a threat to them. So I do think there's some of that going on.
I think that sort of mentality backfires. In many ways, they're going to achieve the opposite by doing that. But I hear what you're saying.
Right. But I'm not going to be, I'll tell you what I'm not going to be. And if that means my status coup is not going to explode, then I could live with it. I'm not going to be an ass kisser to people like Joe Rogan. I'm not going to be a fanboy so I could get clicks. There's a lot of channels out there, frankly, excuse my French, Tina, sucking some dick. So, seriously, there's a lot of channels out there, smaller channels that just put other hosts in a headline to get in their fans and then just defend them regardless of what they say or do. There is no criticism at all.
I don't disagree with that. Or they misrepresent things that were said. They take a little snippet out of context or whatever.
And by the way, those channels are growing because they get some of the cult worship of Rogan to come over to them. There's channels that do that where constantly they have headlines worshiping Jimmy Dore, constantly headlines were, going after people that criticize Rogan or Jimmy or this person. To me, as a consumer, so if I was a news consumer, I trust people that are not all sounding the same tune on a certain topic, that are not all in total support.
The idea that these everybody doesn't have crossover audiences too is what's wild to me. There's plenty of people that like Jimmy that also like Status Coup and like whatever else. Like I don't understand why people are getting so tribalistic and trying to create toxic environments that
because it makes money. Because it makes a lot of money.
I mean,
That's
I
all.
had somebody the other day on Twitter send me some clip that Graham had said something on Jimmy's show about referencing something that I had said, and it was perfectly a fine thing. I didn't have a problem with, but this guy had clipped it out and was trying to say that Graham outed you. Ooh, you're bad. Graham outed you. And I like DM'd Graham and I'm like, you outed me? What is this nonsense?
Listen.
And then I saw the entire clip and I was like, oh, give me a break. No, he didn't out me. It's fine. He said what I said. I agree with what I said. And I have no problem with what Graham said in response. Why are these guys trying to create these toxic arguments that don't exist?
But listen, Tina, it's very clear. There are a lot of channels that literally, if you look at their videos per week, 60, 70% are commenting on other YouTube shows or other YouTube hosts. And
So-
a lot of it is defending certain YouTube hosts, praising certain YouTube hosts, criticizing channels that are covering those YouTube hosts critically. So basically we've created this kind of like system where it's just this feedback loop where if you're a supporter of Joe Rogan, if you're a follower of Joe Rogan, or let's say Jimmy or other people,
Right.
you're then going to channels that are basically kissing their ass 24/7 and
So
never.
Jordan, I've basically spent more time discussing this situation today than I have ever, and it's too much.
Yeah, for sure.
I have better things to do. I just don't understand why people get sucked into this.
Well, I did it today because I wanted to put a button in it because
No,
I don't really want to. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I was honestly stunned, Tina, that like I literally did a live stream and video saying I don't think he should be censored. I don't think he should be deplatformed. And the response was as if, and then I went on to, I think, accurately critique some things he has said that's not true. And the response was almost like I was trying to get him kicked off Spotify when I said explicitly the opposite. So again, you know what? Maybe I'm naive.
Meanwhile, Rome is literally burning, right? We're losing single payer in the state of California. I'm about to go to a protest for an individual that was shot by a Los Angeles Sheriff's Department officer. The officer said he had a gun in his hand and he did not. He had nothing. Like, there's so many more things that are going on that are so much more important than yelling at some other YouTube host. I'm not saying you today, Jordan. I'm saying in general that but why is it these folks want to get on this hamster reel of doing this toxic thing, and it's what's getting the most views? Like, that to me is a systemic problem because it's not just about one person.
Right. Well, it's not organically, by the way. It's not organic. YouTube,
No, it's not organic.
YouTube feeds people these topics and people click. So yes, people are interested, but YouTube is feeding people reactionary fighting about Rogan or whatever else, and not the videos on, LA police brutal killing somebody.
No, and in fact, to give you an idea of how they changed the algorithm, I actually searched in the YouTube search function for something specific the other day, and what was coming up in my first page had nothing to do with what I was looking for. I finally found what I was looking for on like page 9. And I was like, what are these guys doing? This is ridiculous of a responses. This has got nothing to do. But you're right. So the way that they are sort of manufacturing the algorithm right now is really not good.
And with that said, 2.5 hours is enough for happy hour.
I mean, has it been 2.5 hours? Okay.
I'd like Colin to get to his weekend as well as I. Thank you guys for watching. Hey, we might lose some subscribers, but I'm going to tell the truth regardless. We're not going to play to clicks and this and that. And to tell you the truth, if you can't specifically point out things that whether it's Joe Rogan or anyone else did that they were wrong or they were careless or they were too casual, if you can't point that out without being a big brother, without being considered pro censorship or this and that, then we're in deeper trouble than I thought.
I agree.
So thank you, Tina. Thank you, Tina. Safe travels in your reporting tonight. I'll see you back on Monday, I believe. And everybody, please support Status Coup, statuscoup.com/join. You could support us as a member for as low as $5 a month. Makes a huge, huge difference. Every person that signs up as a member. That's how we expand. That's how we afford travel. You could also become a member for a little bit more. We have $10 a month levels, $20 a month level, and $179 annually. And don't forget, well, StatusCoup.com/store. StatusCoup.com/store. Get your swag. The United Corporations of America. The United Corporations of America shirt. The that one's the separate one. The fossil fuckers.
The fossil. That's good.
And the quote shirt. But you could find it all, StatusCoup.com/store. Maybe I'll do a runway show next week with the shirts. Thank you, Tina.
100%. Happy.
Bye-bye.
This is a lot of fun.
Take care, folks.